This is the first time I've seen your lobster tattoo
Oh, yeah.
IRL. Yeah,
People talk about it way too much.
yeah. I saw a URL, but first time IRL.
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
we live, Jordan?
Oh, yes, you are live.
Oh, okay. Hey, Shelton Holmes, welcome to the Popcorn Space. How
Hello.
are you doing
I'm
today?
doing well, thank you, man.
Yeah. It feels incredibly, it felt incredibly disingenuous to say that just now because we were already having a good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you like a lot better than most of the guests.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny how this podcast has gone so far. So it'll be like a famous person and then like my uncle, like back to back.
Yeah.
And then like my niece. It's just, I'm trying to go all over the place.
I feel you, man. I feel you. Yeah, and I'm proud to be the famous person in that scenario.
Yeah, so you're the famous person
Thank
today.
you. Thank you.
So I guess the first question I want to ask you is like, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but in a professional scenario, say that you're your agent for whatever, how would you describe yourself? Like talking yourself up. Like you need to book Shelton Holmes. He's this good. Or if you were a friend talking to another friend, oh, Shelton's great. Shelton does this. I don't know.
I don't know. But
so what do you classify yourself as mainly?
Professionally, though? Like if I'm talking about just
it doesn't have to be professionally, but like what do you consider to be? So do you consider like your job or your hobbies or what to be more of who you are? I guess.
I'm more my hobbies. I'm not really my job at all. But I don't know, dude. Shelton Holmes is an enigma. You know what I mean? He's not. I'm not real. I don't know. I don't.
You can
identify,
face it directly up at you.
I don't
like
identify strongly as anything
like that.
No. So yeah, I don't really know the answer to that question. Like if somebody were to say that about my comedy, you know, you need to book him because whatever. I'd say because I've got a decent presence, I think, and my jokes are funny. Like just as a person, you need to bring him along because maybe he's a good listener and an extra body in the room, which is nice.
Yeah,
you know, like trying to make this party look like it's popping. We can't just have 3 people show up, so Shelton Holmes should probably come.
I had at one point, so I've always thought, so you're more my older brother's age, and so you hung out with him more. But I feel like a lot of my social awkwardness came from the fact that I've always had this philosophy, which I know is incorrect. That is, if I'm good at talking, so whatever situation I'm in, I could fix it by just talking the right amount. Like I could talk my way out of it. But it always works the other way, ironically. And it always gets worse and worse and more awkward the more you say.
Yeah.
I remember. Okay, so this is not good, but I remember one time after like a really good date, like it went really well, and afterwards I was trying to be like silly and cute and like end it the correct way, and I said something about how we should hang out later, and she was like, "Yeah, absolutely," and she was like, "I'll call you around 8," and I was like, "Yeah," and if you don't, that's cool because your furniture looks better from the bushes, and like something like that, and it was like quick, and she didn't get it immediately, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
And I just have learned slowly to stop talking in those situations.
Yeah.
Because you can only go down from there.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you hope in that situation, like this is just a slow build. You know, you just don't get it right now. But tomorrow you're gonna wake up after being afraid that I watched you all night and be like, oh my God.
Right.
That was actually a joke and it was hilarious.
But I was told about my older brother because I always thought he had like a cool, chill presence. And I always was curious about how he accomplished that. And I think one time my dad was talking to me about it. And he's like, I think Marcus is just quiet enough that he's able to like sit back and be just a part of the like cool gang because he doesn't put himself out there like awkwardly with talking too much.
I've noticed
and I haven't been able to accomplish that.
About like cool people, they can be quiet and then they don't I don't know, they're not very like they're kind of reserved like that.
Yeah.
And
it's
Marcus,
cool to be reserved.
It's cool to be reserved.
Chill.
Well, I think it like presents an element of mystery.
Yeah.
You know, there was this guy like that when I was in high school, and all the girls were like, "Oh my God, he's so cute, and like he doesn't talk, so he must be so smart." And I was like, I've seen that dude in the locker room. He's like, he's a dumbass. But
yeah, maybe if you just heard him talk, you would know.
That's why he doesn't talk. He doesn't know. He doesn't like know words. You know.
So speaking of like being like really socially awkward, so I've like never known you very well until you were the actor in my short film. I felt like that's where I got to know you. But before that, I was telling Jordan about how when I would see you every now and again, you had really long hair and you would just do like crazy, incredible things like every other day that I'd see on social media.
Oh.
And so every time I'd see you, I'd be like, "Hey, when are you scheduled to like die for our sins again?" And you were always like really uncomfortable with it because I was comparing you to Jesus, which would make people uncomfortable, I would imagine.
Yeah. Make Jesus uncomfortable to be compared to me, I think.
Right. It was just a joke, though. By the way.
Yeah.
I want to throw that out there.
Oh, you don't think I'm the living savior?
Right.
Well, I don't know why I'm here then. It's really awkward for me now.
So get in. I will ask you to get into to maybe make me sound less crazy. What kind of things that you do and where the passion for that comes from. So like I know that recently you were like, I want to run a marathon because I think that'd be a cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I remember it was like a month or two, and suddenly I saw that you'd run a marathon. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah. It was 3 months, 12-week training program.
Months. Oh, well then I could have done that.
Yeah. No, really, you could though. And you could probably have beat my pace. There were like old ladies and men in like carrying walkers that beat my pace. So
yeah. I had a friend I was talking to yesterday who apparently decided to map out. She like runs marathons all the time.
Uh-huh.
She mapped out her own marathon like in her neighborhood, and her mother like made her a shirt that said like it was something like some nickname for their neighborhood marathon, first annual, and on the back it said finisher.
Dude, that'd be kind of a cool event. I mean, if you just got
Just by
like 10
yourself.
people together or whatever. I mean, over time, it builds.
Yeah.
You're like, this is the second annual, and we have 2 participants.
That'd be good. We should get that together, but we wouldn't have to finish.
Yeah, I'll
We just
never do another marathon.
Get people who would finish.
Yeah.
Tell me about it was in Austin, right?
Yeah.
Was it like around downtown?
Yeah, it was a really cool marathon. It was the Austin Marathon, and it went through downtown. It went through all the scenic parts of Austin, or like the famous parts of Austin, by the "I love you" sign on the wall and all kinds of different stuff. I didn't see any of it. Whenever I run, I look down like the whole time. I'm just like, don't die, bro, don't die.
Yeah.
So, but I decided to do that because I had always wanted to run a marathon, and when I was in high school, I trained for a marathon, and I got like 2 weeks out from the actual marathon. I'd run like 20. The scheduled training run was, I think, 22 miles or something like that, but I overran my mark, and I think ran pretty close to a full marathon. And I got real bad IT band syndrome in my knee, so I didn't run the marathon. But that may have also just been an excuse to not run the marathon because I realized that was kind of miserable. So
yeah,
but I ended up doing it. So I was like, before I die, I want to run a marathon, and I'm yelling and my joints are okay, so I'll do it now.
So speaking of all the like crazy things that you've done, so was there just like a moment that you can point to that you were like, okay, and you took out a piece of paper and you were like, I'm kind of scared of doing this. I think that'd be interesting. I think that'd be interesting. And then like one by one, you start knocking them off. Or is it just like every now and again, you're like, oh yeah, I think that'd be a cool, crazy thing to do?
Well, how it kind of started was I realized when I was like 24, 25, that I was mostly afraid of life. Like I was living kind of timidly about my life. I wasn't fully present in my life, and I felt like I had this kind of dream of the person that I wanted to be, but I hadn't actually taken any actionable steps towards that. And I had a big life change in my life at 24, 25. And I was like, you know what? Like now's the time to start doing that. If that person in my head is ever really going to live, I've got to kind of give him a voice. So, and that started like, so anything at first, it was like anything that I was remotely afraid of, I would try to enter into and do. So when I was in nursing school, they asked me to do a class presentation. I got up there and I was like, the whole time I was nervous. I was kind of shaking and my voice was cracking. And I got off and I was like, man, I gotta, I can't be afraid of public speaking. I enjoy talking to people and stuff. And so I was like, I gotta go do stand-up comedy.
Yeah. So. I think it was Jerry Seinfeld who was talking about how public speaking is like the scariest thing to do statistically. And he was like statistically it falls above firefighting. So people would rather run into a burning building than do what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. That's crazy to me.
It's pretty interesting.
And I think probably most people, if they actually got, like, if they did it, like I was just telling him, if they actually went up there and did it, there's something really special about the feeling that you have of everybody, like, paying attention to what you're about to say, being invested in a joke or whatever. And then when you hit that punchline or whatever else, you're like, I mean, it's just kind of a flow state type deal.
Well, I feel like you're probably braver than me in that aspect because I've done that a lot, but it's been within acting. So when you're up on stage being a character, it's like you can totally hide in that. And so I'm following a script. I'm not talking as myself at all. I've become this character, so it's like I've got a mask on,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't feel vulnerable in that aspect when I'm being this character, because I feel very confident in the character normally.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that it's bravery, just a different side of the same coin. Because you can do the same thing in stand-up comedy. You don't have to be completely yourself. Like you present yourself as I'm Shelton Holmes and I'm telling jokes, and these are jokes that I made up, and I'm not necessarily being vulnerable with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are kind of my realities or whatever else, but I think you can kind of do the same thing.
Well, I'd like to eventually. I've been trying to work out a little small stand-up set, but
nice.
I've noticed that, like, so even there's this movie called Larry Crown with Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen it?
Mm-mm.
So it's like, it's basically about how important college is, and so he's like works at a grocery store and has forever, and he is trying to get to like be the manager position, but at a certain point they're like, you don't have a college degree, and so they've ended up telling him you need to get some kind of college degree. So he left and went to this like community college, and it's about like he like falls in love with the speech teacher or something. But the depiction of that speech class, I watched this in high school, it was so incredibly uncomfortable and just like weird when everybody had to go up there and give their weird speeches about one kid was giving it about like how to do the perfect like hip hop 2-step,
mm-hmm.
and everyone has a hard time getting out words,
mm-hmm.
and they're like,
dude,
in front of everybody, and you have to like sit through it, and it's so uncomfortable. And I was like, that can't be real. And then I took speech this year, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what it's like.
That's exactly what it's like. Yeah.
But I've noticed, like, even when I get up there and do it, it's like, this is so uncomfortable because I don't know any of these people.
Yep.
And this is like a subject that I really don't / kind of care about, because it was
Mm-hmm.
something I could come up with quick to write a speech about.
Yeah.
But
that's such a good practice session, though. I mean, like adults sign up to do Toastmasters or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the
Toastmasters.
Yeah. It's just a public speaking forum, basically.
Okay.
You get up there and you have something that you've prepared to talk about, and you're talking to an audience of people that have also got something to talk about. Everybody's just practicing public speaking because they're afraid of it.
It's incredibly important.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also important for like developing thinking. So a lot of us, I hypothesize,
mm-hmm.
don't want to public speak, and we don't think it matters because it doesn't matter what we think to talk to a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so by that, we're able to like retreat into this like half aware state, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was before. So before, I think it's been like maybe over a year now that I've really tried to develop my thoughts and opinions on like kind of well-rounded about the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried to teach myself more about like economics and the government to understand, so then I can develop an informed opinion on it. Because before that, I just had my ideas of other people's ideas.
Yeah.
And I would just tell people that I'm not into politics because I knew that it would cause tension, and I didn't really know anything.
Yeah.
And I would intentionally stay ignorant of it. But I realized, that's really like bad, and it's really important to know what's going on.
It is very
and
important.
have an opinion on it.
Yeah. I would say that it's worse, though. Like, you sounds like to me have done good the whole time, because whenever you were ignorant, you would say, I don't want to talk about it or whatever.
Right.
A lot of people are ignorant and they say, I still want to talk about it, and I still feel very strongly even though I don't know anything.
I hear what you're saying. It was probably just lucky that it worked out that way, because I was probably just saying I don't want to talk about politics more because I didn't want to deal with the tension of it.
Yeah.
Because I knew that like because of like social media and stuff, like I think it's interesting because we live in Texas, and before it used to be that kids would like follow kind of for a general rule, kids would follow the political agenda of their parents.
Yeah.
But now with social media, and we're following everything that like it's cool, like, or not cool, but it's interesting that we have these actors on screens. We go to a movie theater, their face is like ginormous. It's like basically a god to us, because we're staring at this huge person who's like got scripted lines and he knows exactly what he's saying, and then he says something on Twitter politically, and we've seen him as this kind of idol-like figure, and we're like, yeah, that must be right. And so like I think because of social media, there's been a huge turn that now, instead of following what their parents say, they, for a general rule, follow what their favorite celebrities say, because you feel like this closeness to those celebrities, even though you've never met them.
I know that has been a shift, but that's a possible reason for that shift. I mean, social media has been huge, so that would make sense. I don't know though. I hope not. I mean, I think that probably most of the population is sheep,
Yeah.
In some aspect of the word, like they're asleep mostly to what they really want to do or whatever. So I think it makes sense that everybody wants to listen to somebody else to form their opinion based on whatever somebody else says. So whether they're getting it from their parents or social media or celebrity, whatever. That
and
kinda
it
makes
can be
sense.
hard. It can be hard to form your own opinion because you have to take something that you learn and go to multiple different sites and see what each person said about it.
Yeah.
So I'll listen to like the Ben Shapiro podcast all the time, but then from there I'll go and research online like different people talking about it, like Joe Rogan's take on it and like Jordan Peterson's take on it.
Yeah.
And
that's good, man. That's real important. Getting both sides of the argument.
Yeah, definitely. Because everyone's okay. Do you know who Owen Benjamin is? Dude, I feel like you'd be so into Owen Benjamin.
Oh yeah.
He's so he's been on Joe Rogan. He used to write for Steven Crowder. And it started off as this kind of normal comedian, and he was like hilarious. But he got in this argument on Twitter with someone about like trans babies or whatever against hormone blockers. And he was like, "This is the hill I'm going to die on." And that's kind of what happened. And so he got kicked off of Twitter.
That's a crazy hill to even exist.
I know. Well, he got kicked off of Twitter for it. And then he
got kicked off of Twitter for it?
Yeah. And so now his stand-up routine, he still does it. And he tours and does a stand-up routine. But it went from being funny, just silly comedy. Like he had a joke about like married people and why men and women don't understand each other. And now his comedy routine is still funny, but it's incredibly conservative and political.
Oh man.
Like it's totally based around that.
Yeah.
Not in like a necessarily bad way. Like, so I'm not very conservative.
I mean, not hate that, but it's disappointing that somebody that could have had a platform that's kind of broader. I mean, now that's probably a money-making deal too, because he's going to get a lot more following and consistent following by just having one political.
Well, I think it's just that his comedy reflects who he is, and at first he wasn't thinking about all that, and all this came up, and so now he's writing comedy about like what's going on around him.
Yeah, maybe so.
If that makes any sense.
But surely he's bigger than his political ideals,
Probably. I don't know. He does YouTube live streams like almost every night. And I can't like get through him because he's just like, he'll just like rant about stuff. And sometimes they're interesting to watch because he got way into the moon conspiracy.
Oh yeah.
But that's not true. He thinks NASA is a huge money laundering scheme for the government because they do all this stuff every now and again. So we don't ask any questions.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, the Mars rover cost $10 billion. And we're like, yeah, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think Steven Crowder stopped like working with him because he didn't want the like negative press from like the moon conspiracy thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, fine, I don't care. He was barely paying me anyways. And he's just like, he's gone off the rails, but he's still like funny and interesting. I feel like you'd be into like the way he talks.
Yeah, probably so.
Because you know how like Alex Jones is like insane?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like kind of like that same vibe.
Yeah.
But like in a
Alex Jones is very entertaining though.
Yeah.
Listen to him on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, I like watching him on Joe Rogan because
like,
they're talking about like the next dimension and like aliens that are angels.
Off. He did this 15-minute
but he's so
rant.
Serious about it.
But then after his 15-minute rant was over, I forget the other guy's name, Eddie, whatever, the jiu-jitsu guy, Eddie Bravo.
Yeah,
he was like, could you like repeat that? Like, could you explain what you were saying? He was like, I don't know what I just said.
Yeah, I'll watch clips from Alex Jones on Joe Rogan. And it's like really intriguing to listen to him because he's got a really interesting way of talking.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to retain anything.
Yeah.
Because
basically all it does is give you this like overall message of like, you should be afraid. You don't know exactly what you should be afraid of, but I seem like an authority figure and I'm saying that everything is scary. So you should be afraid.
Well, and then half the time, like you don't know if Joe Rogan's high or not.
Joe Rogan is almost always high.
Almost always?
Almost always.
It's hard for me to tell because I think I was much more ignorant not too long ago when I was like, I knew that he was a huge pothead because he talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think he smokes on the podcast though, unless like you see him do it and you were like, no, he seems high almost all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't know. But now I feel like I can tell every now and again.
Yeah.
Because he gets like this like crazy-eyed seriousness and he's like, no, like I mean it, man. And you can just tell. And so I think that's so funny because like when he's talking to Alex Jones is going off about this crazy stuff and Joe's just like on the edge of his seat like the whole time along for the ride. So it's hard to get any kind of what is the word, like when you have an experiment, you control group.
Yeah.
Except for like when you were saying like Eddie Bravo's like, do you have any idea what you just said?
Yeah. Yeah, he on his podcast the other day, I was listening to him and Ron Funches. And he was like, just, for everybody, I smoked before this and as I usually do. And I was like, yeah, I can't ever tell really whenever, he's high or not.
Yeah.
But every now and then he'll give like that I just did whatever.
So as going back to your comedy, how did you start doing stand up, and like when was that?
I started.
For a question, did it start because you were mentioning how you had to do a speech for nursing school? Was that kind of like, ooh, I like being on stage, or I'm afraid to be on stage and I need to not be?
Yeah, that was kind of the cardinal event. It was more fear. Yeah, everything. I mean, in that first, like, really up until about 6 months ago, I was doing a lot of stuff. Like, I'm afraid of this, so I got to go do it.
Yeah.
But the first,
which is a good strategy.
It's a good strategy.
It's kind of what The Lobster's about. It's like face suffering head on.
You definitely should. But I think I was going a little too hard. Like, I'm afraid of falling, so I gotta jump out of a plane. I don't just have to jump out of a plane. I got to get my like license about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is still something.
What does that mean exactly?
Your license?
Yeah. So like you can do it alone?
I can already do it alone. I've got 9 jumps. But when you're licensed for your level 1, it means that you can jump by yourself. Completely alone. So I've got
like you can fly the plane.
Yeah.
And then jump out.
And then crash the plane. Yeah. It makes you a real badass.
Yeah.
People die all
and you
the
don't
time.
Look at the explosion if you want to be cool. To be
Just
cool,
walk
you have to be
away.
quiet, aloof.
Well, if you look at the explosion, you lose your level 1 certificate.
Yeah, I think it was The Lonely Island. Wrote a whole song about that. Cool guys don't look at explosions.
Yeah. No, it just means that you can jump out without an instructor. You have to jump out with an instructor for the full 25 jumps, and you're doing different like maneuvers and everything as you're falling. So the level 1's about falling and making sure that you can fall correctly, which there's a lot that goes into that. And then level 2's about or class B, I think I may be getting them wrong. Class A and class B is about parachute tricks and stuff, how you can, fly your parachute correctly. But that's what that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then going back to comedy, and you were afraid, so you're doing it, and then you said you were doing it too much. What makes you say, okay, so what makes you say too much? Is there any kind of negative coming out of that?
Just in terms of fear setting, not in terms of comedy. Yeah, because you get wrapped up in like
just the thrill of it.
Well, not real. I don't know. I was just thinking about this the other day. It's like, for a while I was too motivated, I think, to do everything that I was afraid of. Like if I'm afraid of anything or have anxiety about anything, I have to go do that. And that makes you like, where you're not really ever existing in the present, just being content, you're just on the hedonic treadmill, just chasing the next thing.
Yeah.
So I think
like you didn't think you were making any kind of real progress.
No, I made real progress. Yeah, no, for sure. Everything that I did made real progress in how calm I feel and present I feel in the world,
Okay.
But the biggest thing to make, progress like that is to just be consistent in some other, practice, like just to be mindful or whatever else. It doesn't take, there are big events that you can do that like, okay, now I've got more faith in myself than I did before. And now this scenario doesn't make me nervous anymore. Like I can speak in front of people. I'm no longer nervous.
Yeah.
Or I can, because of jujitsu, I can, an altercation could potentially happen. And I'm more like, okay, this may be okay. You know what I mean? Whereas before it's like, kind of, this makes me afraid.
So where did stand-up come in the line of that? So it was
stand-up was first.
It was the very first.
Yeah. Well, and mostly because my financial situation was I was in nursing school. I was broke. So I was like, this is the one thing I can do right now. I can't afford jumping out of planes or anything. Right. Stand-up came first. And stand-up was probably the scariest thing to do for the first time. Yeah, but
see, it's funny. You go back to like public speaking. It's scarier to be in front of a few people than jumping out of a plane.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty scary the first time.
Yeah.
But Lubbock has a really good stand-up comedy scene.
Was that the first place you did it in?
Yeah, when I was in nursing school, I was at Texas Tech. So, and Lubbock has a really good. Even now, it's even better. It's grown. They did like a little 20-minute PBS special on their stand-up comedy thing. I mean, it's it's gotten pretty cool. And there, most places, if you do comedy, you can expect maybe 3 minutes or so of time. And there you get a solid 5. Or if you've been doing it for a little bit, you get 7 in an open mic scene, Yeah. So it's a really, really good place to start. And it's kind of starting up here to be similar. So
see, I try to be like really diverse and like understanding comedy. So anytime I see a new comedy special on Netflix, I give it a chance. And so like no matter who it is, I'll try to watch it and I'll give it like a good 20 minutes. And if it's good, I'll keep going. So I found a lot of really interesting comics that way. And I also do the same thing on YouTube, and I'll find different comics that way. But I think the shortest set I've ever seen, like I guess would be like on YouTube, would be maybe 20 or 25 minutes. Like
that's big comics.
So it's interesting.
Right.
I know, but it's just like interesting because I've never been to a comedy club. So I've never seen a 5-minute set. So I wouldn't even know what that looks like, really.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. I mean, it depends on like whatever your style is, especially like I was going to do some stuff in Austin recently, and they've got kind of an open mic website that you can go to.
Yeah.
And they're like, this place will give you 2 minutes, or this place will give you 3 minutes. I'm like, that's like barely enough to set something up.
Right. Because most comics that I see will set up a beginning joke, and then it'll become a running gag, and then it like ties into the entire story.
Yeah,
and it's like this
so you essentially have time just for like one joke there. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's kind of tough. But if you have 5 to 7 minutes, you could get into a little bit. Like you could begin to kind of paint a narrative or whatever.
So what, as far as like painting a narrative, where did you start, and like how did you figure out, and like what does it look like? I guess
that like tying stuff together has only come recently, and I'm still not like, I'm just starting to develop in that area. You know, my jokes up until like the past 4 months or so were all is like a series of one-liners. You know, and now I'm like, okay, I've got these one-liners, and I've got a decent enough kind of gathering or collection of one-liners that are under this like heading, or category.
Yeah.
And so now I can put these into kind of like, okay, now I'm talking about my relationship, and now I'm talking about my family, or now I'm talking about my job or whatever else, and then it starts to develop. Like you're like, this whole section's relationship, and then this next part is family, or and it starts to kind of weave together into something bigger.
Have you ever / would you ever be interested in like just like kind of not freestyle, I guess, but being able to whip something off? Because sometimes I would imagine, and I don't know if it's happened to you yet, but at some point I would imagine if you have a set that's 5 minutes and it's strictly like almost completely scripted, I would imagine there are times that some people just aren't feeling it, and like 3 minutes into it, you're like, oh my God, I need to come up with something else. And I don't know, what would you do in that scenario? Has that ever happened?
The way that I usually, I mean, that stuff like that has happened before. But so whenever I first started doing it, I'd have, maybe 5 jokes or whatever. And 2 of those hit really hard. They were good jokes. And then 3 of them didn't hit very hard or whatever. But you can be kind of self-depreciating or say stuff in between that's just ad-libbing, and a lot of your joke stuff, especially as you start off, you have a bunch of extra words in your jokes, and then once you do it more, you're like, okay, I kind of need to narrow this down to the only words that are important for the joke to communicate it better that way, so yeah, that does happen though. But so what I do now is whenever I'm doing a set, I've got like, okay, so I know that this joke is pretty good because I've been doing it for a little bit, to where I've got a feeling for what jokes consistently hit, So I know this joke is good, so I'll start out there. I know this other joke is good, so I'll put it kind of in the middle. And then I've got maybe a joke that is a new joke, so I'll try that joke over here on the bridge. So if it's not funny, that's okay. I'll follow it up. Like the whole goal with that is to keep the energy the same throughout, like if people are laughing for the first half and then the second half is just dead, then you're kind of dead in the water. But if you can spread that out a little bit, then they're laughing.
Do you have like a go line that if they're just not laughing, you're like, and that's it. All right, thanks guys.
No, like
you need like an escape line.
Well, not something super quick like that.
Yeah.
I've got kind of my outro lines, that are like, this is kind of how I'm gonna close down, lets everybody know that this is coming to an end. It's like whenever I get the light, I'm like, okay, these are I'll leave y'all with this type deal.
So what is your longest set that you have right
now? The longest set that I've done, is that what you're saying?
Or that you have prepared that you could do?
It's hard to say exactly. I mean, probably. So I've got on whatever this next month is, June 6th.
April, May.
April. April 6th. Jeez. Wow.
April's technically next
way
month,
off.
but it's almost April.
I usually
then May.
blame my like lack of time orientation.
You just said July. Did you say July?
I said July. Yeah, we can edit that out though.
I guess you don't go to
that'll go
school,
in
so that
post.
makes sense. that
No,
you-
I'm actually going to school, so I'm just.
You're actually going to school,
yeah,
so I have no idea why
no
you don't know what the date is.
Yeah. No, early onset Alzheimer's or something really bad.
Man.
That was super embarrassing. I'm so sorry. That camera.
It's okay.
I
can't believe I compared you to.
So, anyways,
Savior.
in December 6th.
Yeah.
No, April 6th. We're gonna do. I've got 15 minutes set that I'm gonna do then, and 15 minutes is the longest I've ever done. So I'm gonna try to have that packed with pretty good material, and I think that I'll be able to accomplish that. So probably 15.
What's the
minutes
longest that you've done before that?
10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's funny. I think it's Tom Segura was talking about when he started. He's doing 5, 7 minutes, and then when he had to do his first 30-minute set, he was so scared that that's so much time.
Yeah.
And so he had to build up to it, and he was finally able to do it. And then he started just doing 30 minutes, and then he started doing specials.
Yeah.
And then he said that he was asked to perform at some place where they had a bunch of comics, and they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna give you 5 minutes." And he was like, "I have no idea how to do a 5-minute set.
Yeah.
My material is made for a really long amount of time."
Yep. I could totally see it developing into that. Like I said, first times going through were one-liners, and now I've got to this I can weave things together, and so now
it's more of a story.
It's more of a story, and now whenever I'm coming up with jokes, I'm thinking I'm already in my head oh, this joke would be good here to fit in with this category, so it's already part of a larger set. So already my time frames are getting longer for how long these jokes are expected to take.
Do you do any? So the culture right now. I mean, I don't. It's funny because I can't really talk about any past time because I was not there.
Oh yeah, you didn't exist before this present time, huh?
Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy.
So people ask if it looks like I was born yesterday. Well, but it seems like right now things are incredibly sensitive. Like just looking back at Mel Brooks, who was incredible, and did you watch a lot of his movies?
I love Mel Brooks.
So he's freaking hilarious. But now, if you look at that and it came out in any of his movies came out today, they would be horribly shunned, and he'd be called a bigot. I mean, he was a little bit in his time. I think it was The History of the World Part 1 where he did the Inquisition song, and everyone was like, "You're anti-Semitic," and he's like, "I don't know if you know what satire is, but I'm pretty sure Mel Brooks is a Jew. Maybe
I think he's a Jew.
I think he's a Jew." And he's like,
he had some.
I don't know if you know what
power in our
anti-Semitism is.
social, environment. So he's probably a Jew.
Right. Did you see Mike Birbiglia's joke when he was talking about Jesus, and he was like, he was doing this Jewish impression. He was like, because he's Jewish, right? He's a Jewish socialist. He's like the least popular demographic, especially with Christians.
Yeah.
What was I saying just a moment ago?
I don't know, man.
Oh, sensitive culture. Okay, so Mel Brooks wouldn't be able to exist here. And so I know that you're kind of new to the comedy scene, but do you or have you wanted to do anything edgy that you're scared of doing now? Or that you have ever been hesitant about?
Nah, man. But
you do a pretty chill set.
No, some of it gets, but I kind of I like to for people to think that I'm about to piss them off, and then I go the other direction.
Right.
So people are like, "Oh, I don't know," but that makes them pay attention. They're like, "I don't know what you're about to say, but it seems like you're getting kind of into an area that I don't really appreciate."
Yeah.
And then I just change it up right at the last second. They're like, "Oh," it kind of, but that's part of you build tension, and then right at the end you're like, just let that valve loose.
It's like a fart of the mind.
It's very similar. Comedy in general is very similar. God, that is such a deep.
I think it was Rhett and Link. They have a they call themselves internet-tainers. They have they're basically the talk show of YouTube.
Rhett and Link?
Rhett and Link, yeah. And they had one episode about what laughter is and what their hypothesis is for it. And Link said, "I feel like we're so stressed all the time, and we just build up so much energy and anxiety. It's like a fart from our mouths." It's
yeah, that's kind of what it is.
It's this release of pressure and stress.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really weird, but also maybe deep. I don't know.
Yeah. That's kind of what it is. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. So what I think about is when I was telling you about Owen Benjamin. So his thing, he was on Dave Rubin, and he was talking about one of the first things that he started noticing in the culture was that people get offended for other people, which is the most annoying part because the people themselves don't even get offended at it.
Yeah.
And he said, I had a ton of gay friends, and I would make like gay jokes in my stand-up, and they thought it was hilarious. And I would like try them at gay bars, and they would love it. And then I go to a place, and all these like girls who went to Yale would get offended for the gay people.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said one of the jokes, the first joke that I said ever, where people started booing. He was like, it was when I realized I can't stand these people. And the joke was, he was like, AIDS affected a lot of people, but one group that we forget about that it hit the hardest was the vampires. And they were like, how do you get AIDS? From blood and sex? That's all I've done for 1,000 years. You can't put a condom on a fang. And everyone started booing. And he's like, what the heck? That's a hilarious joke.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense that they would get offended about that.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I guess because...
But that's how it is when it's, I mean, extremely PC. It's pretty ridiculous. But I've never been in a place like that, you know?
Yeah.
No audience has ever been like that. I mean, you know, like the places I've done are Lubbock, which isn't real. I mean, it's a college, but it's not real PC. And here. And here, people don't even know. Like, that doesn't even register. They're like, I have a gun in my truck. I don't even know what are you talking about?
Well, I wonder how much more it's going to change, because he said when he started off, he was considered like a prude, because he wouldn't like, he was like, oh, and you're like so not edgy. Like, you do like the simplest comedy, like take a risk. And he was like, I've stayed the exact same, but the overtinted window just kept sliding until eventually now everyone's like, you bigot. How could you say that? And he's like, I've been saying the same stuff the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy, man. I forget the guy's name. He's an Indian guy who did a set at some college.
Aziz?
No, it's another guy. And he got kicked off for saying, he was like, this is how you know that being gay isn't a choice. Is like there's a black guy, you know, that's gay or whatever. There was somebody in the audience. It was like an ad lib.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's how you know it's not a choice, because no black person needs, you know, to be gay on top of being black or whatever. And the guy thought it was hilarious. Everybody thought it was funny, whatever. And then he told that, so that became part of his routine. And he told it at a school, and they kicked him off the stage for it. They like shut him down in the middle of it right after he said that.
Well,
like,
Jerry Seinfeld won't even do colleges anymore, which is funny, because
I think
Jerry Seinfeld is like
way.
The least edgy comic I could think of.
Yeah, seriously,
and
man.
he's like, I won't do colleges anymore.
That's crazy, though. That really is crazy.
Colleges,
and it's a bummer for those kids too, because like you have some big performers that'll come and do colleges,
right? And
now they're missing out on that. It sucks.
Well, and it's like it's a weird, college is like a weird kind of group, because everyone, for the most part, if you're a traditional student, is like so young. Like, most of their brains haven't finished developing yet.
That's true.
In critical thinking. But like when you go to a class, like I think it's just because it feels like such a step up from high school, because high school they make you go to, it's kind of a joke, and you can like totally not take high school seriously and still get A's.
Yeah.
But then you go to college and you're like, ooh, I actually have to try here, and they're professors, not teachers anymore. And it's like everything I learned, like you go to one psychology class and you're like, wow, I think I could probably write a novel. Yeah. And so everyone's got like, they just feel like they're in the middle of the Enlightenment, kind of.
Yeah. And
so
it's their first time of freedom ever, you know?
Yeah.
And so many parents have gotten more protective, you know, that culture has gotten more protective too. So it's really their first time of freedom.
Well, it's like, so Steven Crowder does the Change My Mind things. You ever watched that? And so it's interesting seeing these people, because they all have, I mean, not all of them, but most of them have that kind of mindset. You hardly ever see someone who's like, hey, I admit that I'm in a very transitional time and I'm learning a lot right now. So this is what I've figured out so far. Yeah. But everyone just has this very matter of fact, this is the way it is. I'm in the middle of a gender studies course, so I know. Yeah. You haven't even taken the midterm yet. And you're like, I know. And
it's tough. I mean, especially when you're young, it's tough to not be that way. You know, you think you know everything up until whatever.
Well, the huge thing is, I mean, yeah, these individual people think they know everything, but even as a culture, we know so little about anything, and we don't even like recognize that. So do you know who David Berlinski is?
No.
So David Berlinski is like a mathematician, and he's an agnostic, and he does these really good talks. A lot of them are on YouTube, but he's looked at a lot of science mathematically and said that none of it makes any sense. So there's some thing. I'm like mumbling so much, but there was something that Joe Rogan was talking about with how, like, first of all, as far as transgenders go, he's like, we have no problem with it. Like people can tattoo their face, people can like if you're more comfortable to say you're this way and do this, like that's fine. Like live your best life, you know.
Mhm.
But as far as changing like basic biology in just denying truth
Mhm.
to the point of like there was some girl who made a YouTube video that went viral about how she took a gender studies course
Mhm.
and she was like, I was pretty liberal until I took this. And
Because it was so ridiculous.
because it was so ridiculous. And she said at one point they were talking about how it's private information and it's not important to disclose
Mhm.
if you were transgender to a different thing. Just like the what is it, the MMA fighter or whatever who was a man that became a woman that started fighting women and
That's so crazy.
beating the hell out of women.
Yeah.
But her question was like, well, what about like in emergency rooms, like that kind of situation? Shouldn't there just be a form that you just fill out if you were originally male or female, just so we know because we can get more specific medical treatment?
Mhm.
Like just we need to save time.
Yeah.
And everyone looked at her like she was an evil, racist, transphobe. And even the professor like kind of laughed her question out and was like, no, there are other ways to tell. And it was funny.
What are the other? I don't understand. Yeah,
Well,
I don't get it.
I think it was this guy, Mark Norman. Do you know who that is?
No, dude. Just assume that I don't know who any of these people are.
Mark Norman's a comedian, and he had this joke where he's like, you know, PC's bullshit because you'd never use it in an emergency. He's like, imagine like an Asian American ran over a black guy walking across the street,
Mhm.
and you had to call the cops, and you were like, guys, you need to get here quick. An Asian American ran into an African American, not because they're bad drivers, because he was walking across the street slow, not because they do that. You need to get here quick. He's drowning in a pool of his own blood, not because they can't swim. It's like, he's dead. It's too late.
Oh man.
But I think it was a funny joke, but I think it's also true because it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
when it comes down to it, like these are the basic facts.
yeah, we need to. It was like Owen Benjamin told a joke where he's like, I lived in a small town and we only had like 2 or 3 black guys in my town.
Mhm.
And he was like, someone stole my bike and I knew who it was because I saw him. And it was this, he said the kid's name, but he was African American. And people had such an assumption of racism that the cop was like asking him to describe the guy. And he's like, he's 5'4", he's black. And he was like, hey, whoa. He's like, there's 3 black people in this town. I just rounded it down to 3 people for you. What else do you want me to say? No, but it's just funny. It's like you have to prove that you're not racist all the time. It seems for a lot of people. It's like one comedian had a joke where he said, you don't have a lot of black friends, do you? He's like, no, I don't have a lot of white friends either. Thanks for rubbing it in my face.
Yeah. Well, it's tough nowadays, you know, and I don't even think there shouldn't be a distinguishment between, I mean, obviously color or whatever else, but most of my black friends, you know, like the other day on Instagram, there was a black friend of mine that was like unpopular opinion about to share. And I was like, oh shit, like he's about to, you know, tell me something that he knows, you know, that I probably don't know, like who was the better rapper or, you know, something deep. And he was like, LaCroix is better than that other watery drink. And I was like, damn, my black friends are whiter than my white friends, you know?
Right.
It's like, it just doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's a goofy time.
It's easy to be white. You just have to say stuff like skedaddle.
That's right.
And then you can make it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's funny. You know how they flavor LaCroix, right?
No.
They put it like at the end of a like big warehouse,
Mm.
and at the end of they get to the door and they say orange. And they shut the door real quick.
Yeah, it seems like that.
Yeah, I've never like. Do you drink LaCroix?
Yeah, I like LaCroix.
Do you really?
I like Topo Chico better though.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that was his unpopular opinion. He was like, LaCroix is better than Topo Chico, and I was like, bro, no.
I don't get Topo Chico's good. I don't get the whole LaCroix thing, and I especially don't get the different flavors because they all taste the same to me.
They are slightly different, you know,
just ever so slightly. Just this like accent.
I've got a very refined palate, so.
Oh right.
Yeah.
What is it? Jordan Peterson only has water, sparkling water, and mineral water, and he's like, it's distinct when that's all you can have.
Yeah,
because he's on that.
Oh yeah,
that
carnivore diet.
Mm-hmm. Where he started off only eating meat and greens, but now he only eats meat
and salt,
which is crazy.
In those waters, yeah, it is crazy, man. That's such a crazy deal.
You were talking. Okay, so I wasn't really paying attention because you weren't talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think you were talking to your dad when Jordan Peterson's daughter was on Joe Rogan, and you were saying questioning things about her diet, I think.
Well, just that, you know, you're missing a lot of vitamins and minerals and stuff if you're doing the carnivore diet. But I'm not an expert on this, you know.
Right.
I listened to some podcast where she was talking about the potential dangers.
It seems like she has some idea where it's like, and maybe I'm misquoting, but it feels like, I think she said something about how almost she's realized when you start only eating meat that you start not needing certain vitamins or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I might be misquoting, but I remember
Yeah.
hearing something like that.
I don't
And
know,
Jordan
that
Peterson
sounds
just
like-
listens to her, and he's like, I'm not suggesting this to anybody.
Yeah.
My daughter told me I should do it, and it works for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing with her is she suggests that everybody do it. You know,
Yeah.
she's like on social media, like I'm a nutritionist now, and I'm talking about
Yeah.
the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
And that's kind of dangerous, you know, because you're pretty ignorant. You don't really know
Yeah.
what you're talking about. But we'll see how it turns out. Lots of people are doing the carnivore diet, and it's working out for them right now. You know,
Seems
they
really
may have
expensive
rickets
to
in
buy
3
meat
years
all
or
the
whatever.
time.
But yeah, but if that's all you're buying,
Right.
you know, I mean, I don't know. It'd probably be fairly cheap to just buy meat and very filling, you know.
Yeah.
If all you're eating is meat, I'd probably
He
maybe
said
like
the big
twice a
thing
day.
is some people do it and they say that they're hungry, and he said you have to eat until you're not hungry.
Yeah.
Like, and I think you can eat like as much as you want if you're only eating meat, is what he said.
This sounds like a diet that was invented by dinosaurs. You know, like, no, bro, just get together in the group. Yeah,
I'm telling you,
just
man.
keep eating until you're not hungry anymore. You know,
Right.
and then go off in the wilderness and be a dinosaur.
I've gotten off of my questions. Do you have any goals or specific aspirations with comedy?
I'd like to have a solid like half-hour set, you know.
Yeah.
I want to keep doing this for a long time, you know. So I want my comedy to improve. I'd like to be able to tell stories better when I'm on stage. I'd like to get not far away from the one-liners, but to get where I'm comfortable telling one-liners, but also getting into more of a joke that has a setup that's longer, you know, being more comfortable with people not laughing for a longer period of time.
Who's your favorite comic?
I really like Mitch Hedberg. He's probably my favorite.
Did you grow up listening to comedy, or was that like a more recent development?
I did grow up listening to comedy, but I couldn't tell you who exactly I was listening to. My parents are fans of comedy, but
yeah,
I don't know exactly who I was listening to.
I just remember growing up, I heard two comics and two comics only. I heard Brian Regan and Jim Gaffigan.
Yeah. No, those are the two big ones for sure.
And then it was probably in high school, or maybe just before high school, when I started like really looking for myself and finding a whole ton of different comedians and realizing, oh, there's a lot of people that are really good at this.
Yeah, and a lot of different styles. You know, nobody's the same. And now I still like Brian Regan.
Yeah,
I've kind of fallen. Me and Jim Gaffigan have grown apart, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so he's gotten like so tame that it's like he's not even like talking about anything anymore. Almost.
Yeah.
I think it was Cinco was the special that it just felt like there wasn't really any meat to it. There was one funny joke that he told in Cinco when he said how much we binge shows all the time, and he said, like, for example, I watched all of the seasons of True Blood, and I'm not even gay. And he's like, I know you're thinking that, like, Jim, you don't have to be gay to watch True Blood. I hear what you're saying. That's because you're gay. No, but yeah, he's kind of fallen off. It just kind of all becomes the same. He just talks about food and kids. Food and kids.
And I get tired of that too. People that are like, you know, when big people, like, I forget the guy's name, the fluffy guy, you know, where
Gabriel Iglesias,
just talks about being fluffy. Like, he just a bunch of fat jokes all the time. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get it.
It just stays the same.
Yeah, it's
for
funny.
Years and years.
Yeah, but
yeah, you got to move on.
You got to move on, man. Yeah. Who are you?
Yeah.
You're not just a fat guy.
What I think is so cool about Mike Birbiglia is that I think he's probably my favorite comic.
I do like Mike Birbiglia. Yeah, he does a good job.
But he's got a really beautiful way of making it's almost not even a comedy special. It's like a one-man show, and he'll do this stories about big events in his life, and he's got like a really ridiculously interesting life. So the first special that's on Netflix, I think, was about him and his college sweetheart that he almost married but didn't end up. And then his second special was about him meeting his wife. And this most recent one was just this like love letter to like joke telling in general. And
yeah, I like him. He's super real.
Yeah.
I like Neil Brennan too. Have you listened to him? He's got 3 mics.
He wrote for Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a funny guy.
His show, like, but that's completely different than most people are doing. He's got the 3 mics, and one of them's a joke mic, and one of them's a improv mic or something. And the other one's kind of him telling life stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because in his second mic where he he has just like life stories. He's getting like really, really deep, and you don't like expect a joke in a time like that. And he was talking about I volunteered for Big Brothers Big Sisters. And then he said, because I'm an angel that descended from heaven. And I was just like, I'm not ready for a joke like that.
Dude, he's hilarious. I follow him on Instagram.
Yeah.
He's a funny guy.
Yeah, he's a really smart guy too.
Yeah.
I've listened to him on a lot of podcasts and stuff. So tell me about your career. What role it plays in your life right now and why you chose it.
My career. I chose nursing. Well, in truth, I chose nursing. I was a personal trainer for a while. I coached CrossFit for about 5 years, and then I went to Lubbock, and I was the manager of a gym there at Cardinals. And so I've always had like I've always enjoyed helping people and seeing progress. So that's kind of why I got into nursing originally. However, in nursing, you don't really see a lot of progress. People come in for problems, and they want a pill for their problem, and they don't ever seek solutions by themselves. It seems like to me, in my area of practice, I have not seen a whole bunch of progress with people.
What made you want to choose nursing over being like a doctor?
Well, because doctor's really hard, and I'm not really in it that deep,
Yeah.
I am going to nurse practitioner school right now, though, and that's just in hopes that in the future it'll open up more opportunities for me. There are clinics and things where you can deal with the kind of people that I'd like to deal with. Right now I'm in an ER, and most of the people you see, I mean, they're coming in for little stuff, or it's a trauma or whatever, which is whatever that's necessary. That is when I feel like my job is necessary. So that's good. But yeah, that's originally why I kind of got into it. I thought this will be good because I'm helping people or whatever. But now it seems like, people, I don't really enjoy helping people. I don't get satisfaction from my job whenever I'm helping people that are unwilling to help themselves. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the deal with that. But also the reason, like, I was like, I want to help people, and nursing, you get a ton of days off. And I really enjoy doing other things than going to work. I don't want to, live for my job. I'd like my job to be for my life.
So you seem like a really driven person. And I want to ask, is there something you can point to that you think, like, this is where I was like, I'm gonna start being passionate about things and getting things done and figuring things out? Or was it just a slow development, or have you like always been that way?
I think it was a slow development, but I think really, I mean, all this stuff kind of happened whenever I was 24, and I had the big turning point in my life. I forget who it was, but there's somebody that said, every man has two lives, and the second one begins when he realizes that he only has one.
Wow, that's a good saying.
And so when I turned 24, whenever I had that stuff happen, I was like, you know what? I've been living this one life that I have with not a lot of ambition, not a lot of drive for myself. I haven't been doing the things that I want to do. And so that's when that kind of ended. It was like I've got, and the thought of death, kind of keeps me on my toes, which sounds kind of depressing. But when you think about anything in comparison to death, it's like, well, if I have this choice to do this or not do this, I should probably just do it, because one day I'm going to die. And it's not like the stuff that I'm worried about right now, money or whatever else. It's not really going to be that consequential when I'm on my deathbed. I'll look back and say, oh, I did this because I wanted to do this, not because I was scared of, things not adding up the way that I wanted them to add up, So that's probably where it comes from. But I would not say that I was a driven person prior to that. And that's kind of how it was. I mean, that quote, especially during that time, really, I felt that strongly. I was like, I just became aware that I only have one life, and this begins the second phase of my life, So it's
Is there anyone you can point to that would that kind of inspires you to do stuff like that, or to be more driven?
There's a lot of people. A lot of people on social media. Anybody that is authentic to who they are inspires me. You inspire me with a lot of the stuff that you do.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's anybody who does something where they're like, this is something that I want to do. And so I'm going to have to create that reality for myself, and there's a lot of people on social media that, whatever it is, you can really tell if somebody's, exercising because they're being authentic with themselves and they're making themselves better, or if they're just doing it for the gram, But there's a lot of people that are doing comedy, or they're doing whatever they're doing, whatever field they're in. If it's an expression of their authentic selves, then that's inspiring to me. You know,
I think it's interesting. So I've been told, like, more when I was younger, because I've been making YouTube videos since like 4th grade, I think. And I made my first video on like a home camera that my dad let me borrow when I was like 3 or 4 years old. And so I've been doing this forever, and I'm always trying to build up to, like, I'd be saving my allowance money or trying to like do chores and stuff to get cameras. And like I didn't really care about video games. I just wanted a camera, and I wanted to be able to make stuff. And people would say, I feel like you're kind of a person that I know more that follows what you want to do, is what people would say to me. And it seemed really simple to me, because I was like, why wouldn't you do that? Like, it's so really easy to do that.
Yeah.
And I think if I had to point to somewhere that came from, which is funny because I knew this a long time ago, but I didn't know it. So because I don't know if I've mentioned that you're my cousin already, but you're my cousin. And we did this, your younger brother, my older sister, and another cousin made this like American Idol parody forever ago. And for a minute, when you were interested in it before you left the project, you were being
the project. We're just gonna call it the project now.
You were what's his name? Ryan Seacrest.
Yeah. Or Ryan Seacrest.
And you were talking into a TV remote, and you were interviewing us before we went in, and I was one of the contestants. And you were like, "Are you nervous?" And I said, "Well, my dad always says I can't say I can't." And you said, "You heard it here, folks. He can't says he can't." And I think it's funny because that was silly, and it was a funny thing to point to, especially because you were also like, "Are you nervous?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm sweating through my pants." And you were like, "That's a weird place to sweat, the lower body."
Yeah.
But really, I remember my dad used to say that all the time. Whenever it'd be something really like,
he would say, "You can't say you can't."
Yeah, he'd give. I remember
like,
going
it's illegal in this house.
I remember going into timeout for saying I can't.
Really?
Like, seriously. And so, like, it'd be random stuff. Like, I can't think of a good example right now, but it went to the point. My dad used this in one of like his lectures that he was telling one time, and he told in his lecture, I wouldn't let my son, said he couldn't do something. I wouldn't let him, because then he'd have to figure something else out. Because maybe he actually couldn't do something one way. It's like, well, you're not allowed to say you can't. That's not an excuse.
Yeah.
So it's like,
that's a good,
do this. Well, I can't. Like, okay, well, you're going to figure it out, because you're not allowed to say that you can't. Like, okay, well, I have to. It's kind of my perception is wrong. I have to figure out a way around it. Figure out, I've tried A. I need to find a B and C.
Yeah, that's good.
And he said there was one time where there was like, I was really little. There's this baseball tee, it's got the home plate attached to it or whatever. And we're packing up, because he was like my baseball coach. And he was like, "You want me to grab that?" And I was like, "No, I got it. And so I picked it up, dropped it, picked it up, dropped it, picked it up, dropped it. And then I just looked at it for a minute. And he's like, "Do you want me to get it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so."
Well, it's a good thing that motivated you to do what you want to do.
Well, it's just like, so I think that's what I figured out, because they said you seem like driven doing what you want to do. I'm like, why would anyone not do what they want to do? And I think it's because it doesn't work the first time.
Yeah.
So like I got, like I'm trying to get more famous people on the podcast. So for example, when I got Mac Powell, I found out, I'm looking up who's coming into town. I find out he's coming into town, and I find out all the contacts, and I call them. They don't answer, because they're huge publishing companies. So then I call the Paramount. I'm like, "Hey, who is responsible for booking this gig?" Okay, this person. They sent me to him, and I said, "Hey, I need to talk to whoever's responsible for this." They send me to the events coordinator. They send me to the publishing company. Sends me to the booking agent and the publicist. And the publicist sends me to the tour manager. And literally, I get on the phone with the tour manager, and like I can like hear the band in the background, like practicing. And he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I just thought he was like a really chill guy. He was like the most chill guy I've talked to. But he was like, "Yeah, I'll talk to Mac about it." And I like grew up listening to Mac Powell. So it was so surreal for him to be like, "Yeah, I'll talk to Mac about it today, let you know." I was like, "Okay."
Dude, that's dope. Yeah.
And
how was that, like, interviewing him? Were you nervous?
So it's weird, because so the mayor was on here, and that was great. And I really appreciate him, and it was a good podcast.
Yeah.
But I've been listening to Mac Powell since I was little.
Yeah.
And I, found out about the mayor has only been the mayor for like 2 years,
Mhm.
and so when I get the mayor here, I think that was the first kind of big name I had on.
Yeah.
And I think if you go back and listen to that podcast, the first like 5 minutes, I'm a little nervous and I'm trying to control my breathing. If that sounds weird, I'm not like hyperventilating, but it's almost like I breathe weird. And
Yeah, I've been noticing that.
I'm
I was going
trying
to
to-
mention that to you. You breathe super weird.
have I been doing that?
No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, damn it.
Yeah.
But it's like after like 5 minutes of being with the mayor, I kind of jumped that hurdle because he was a really chill guy,
Mhm.
kind of inviting
Mhm.
personality, and it felt like I was just talking to him.
Mhm.
And then we talked about some really serious stuff, and it just feels like we're just talking. And that's kind of the cool thing that I've fallen in love with about the podcast format. But then I think I'd gotten over that hurdle of someone who's like a big name by the time Matt came on.
Nice.
And so I think if you watch that, I almost seem a little out of breath at first because it was really weird and last second because they were kind of keeping us on standby because they didn't know when they'd have time.
Mhm.
So I like fell asleep on the couch in here just waiting. And I sent my sound guy home because they said that it would be later. And then he calls me and goes, we have time right now. That's it. Right now. And I was like, oh, okay.
Dang.
And so I turned on the lights and I like sprinted all the way to the Paramount. And I show up and I'm like, hey, where's Mac? And so we're walking back. I'm trying to control my breathing as I'm walking next to my freaking celebrity fanboy guy. And we get up here. And so for a second, it sounds like I'm a little controlling it. But like immediately, it just felt like it was a really smooth podcast. And I was pretty proud of myself for not sounding super nervous and being able to just have a conversation with him.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
And I actually, I mean, I don't know. It's been a really cool experience. But the whole point of that is that, I figured out it's like somebody knows somebody who knows somebody that I'm going to get to them at some point.
Oh, for sure. And if they're in town in Abilene, Texas.
Yeah. And the worst thing that they could say is no.
Yeah.
So like I got to John Stamos' publicist, and the thing was that he didn't want to do any interviews because of his TV wife thing, if you know about that. He wasn't on.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But do you know what happened with his TV wife?
No.
Okay. Well, like.
Oh, yeah. The college thing.
Yeah.
My bad.
And so I got to John Stamos' publicist, the woman who would have booked him, though.
You want to talk to him just about his TV wife, her stuff?
I just wanted to have an interview with him.
Yeah,
I found out about the TV wife from the publicist, and she said, hey, I'm really sorry. She called me back and said, hey, I'm really sorry. He says he doesn't want to do any interviews. He actually was going to do one for K-Texas, and then he didn't because the TV wife stuff happened. He was like, I don't want to do any interviews.
Oh, is that why he was in your mind? Because he was going to do one for K-Texas? Or is that was
no, because he was going to play with the Beach Boys at the Civic Center.
Oh,
right across the street.
John Stamos was?
Yeah, but it was cool because the publicist was like, I'll send your information to Mike Love's publicist, the lead singer of the Beach Boys or whatever. And so she sent that, and then Mike Love's publicist called me, and they talked to me, and we were maybe going to do it, but then it ended up that the Beach Boys decided to come super late, which is what I've realized about a lot of famous people, is that they'll show up like an hour before their gig, and it takes like an hour to do a sound check.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just kind of crazy that I've talked to like all of these people. And
that
so
is crazy.
Like, it's just like, that was kind of my thing. It's like when I wanted to make something, I just did it. Can't.
Yeah.
So Jordan Peterson has a thing where he's like, he does a self-authoring program. And he says, a lot of people say it's really hard to get myself to do it because I don't feel like it's going to be any good. And he goes, okay, but yeah, you can do it. And they're like, I guess. And he's like, no. Like if somebody put a gun to your head and said, write an essay, it doesn't matter if it's any good. You would write an essay.
Yeah.
Like you'd have one. There would be an essay.
Yeah.
It might not be that great, but it would be there. And then you'd have something. You'd have something to work with, and you could structure it and get it better. And so it's like, don't wait around for yourself to maybe be ready to do something.
Yeah.
Just put something out there, and then you have a basic body to work with.
Yeah. People wait on that, like the muse or for motivation or something. It's like motivation's not going to come, bro.
Yeah.
You got to go out and do your thing.
Well, that's how I even write scripts, is that when I start developing a plot, I'll make like a put on a wall. I'll get sticky notes and make like a plot line. And I just kind of try to power through it. Even when I get stuck, I'll just kind of come up with something and put it there, even if it's not very good. Yeah. Because then I can have like a skeleton to work with, and I can start one by one fixing everything and polishing it.
Yeah.
Because if not, what I've learned is that with brainstorming, creativity comes first, criticism comes afterwards, after you have something to work with.
Oh, for sure.
Because if you're too self-critical at first, you'll never get anywhere. Because you'll be like, what should be the name of my main character? Brian.
Like, oh, Brian's stupid.
Yeah, Brian's stupid.
Yeah. No, you just write it down. It's like, maybe it's Brian.
Maybe Jimmy. I don't know. Jimmy's stupid. So then you just keep going there, and it's like 3 days pass, and you don't even have a character's name.
Mhm.
But if I was like Brian, yeah, that's fine. Okay, Brian.
Yeah.
And then I keep going, and then I've got a
Yeah, you
plot. I start developing a
as
plot.
Brian, yeah.
And then later, after I have a plot, I'll be like, I think Jimmy actually works better for that. I'm going to do that. But then I've already had something in the same amount of time it would have taken me to come up with one thing.
Yep. The future belongs to doers.
That would be
it really does.
That would be the biggest thing I would say. I mean, do it. You're probably going to screw it up at some point, and just be okay with that.
Yep.
That's the worst thing that could happen.
The first step is the hardest part, but you just gotta do that.
The worst thing that could happen is you could die. But you're going to die anyways. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We'll do it.
Put it against death, man.
Right.
And just do it.
You said that. It's like, skydiving, you might die, but you're going to die anyways.
And the likelihood of dying skydiving is pretty low.
It's more likely to die in a
car accident on your way. Yeah.
I was saying it slowly because I didn't know if I was correct.
Yeah. Well, who knows? That's just something people say. I have no idea if that's true. Skydiving is probably extremely dangerous.
Was it like Bill Burr was saying how he doesn't like the ocean. He's scared of it because of shark attacks. And some guy was like pretending he was smarter than him, and he said, oh, yeah, well, actually, most percentages of shark attacks happen in shallow water. And he goes, yeah, because that's where all the people are.
Yeah.
He's like, you think there's anybody being like, come on, let's swim to Iceland?
Yeah. I listen to that. It's so funny whenever people turn stuff like that on their head, It's like commonly, they're like, yeah, most of it happens in shallow water. And you're like, oh, okay, so, but somebody turns on their head like, yeah, that's where most people are. You're like, oh, duh.
Yeah, no one's swimming in the middle of the ocean. That's the undertow or whatever.
Yep.
Dude, that's a scary thing. Do you swim in the ocean very often?
Not very often. And I haven't. Like, I've never been scared of swimming in the ocean until I started listening to these podcasts where everybody talks about how they're scared of swimming in the ocean. There's so many people that are scared of swimming in the ocean.
It is. Well, I haven't been scared. I mean, in any time I've gone, I haven't been scared of it. But there was, I think it might have been my first time because I didn't really know about the undertow or anything, which it pulls you out. Yep. Which is a scary freaking thought. And if there's not like a line. It's just out there in the water. And I remember I was swimming really far and I had I'm trying to go up with the waves or whatever. It's like a really cool experience to swim in the ocean because of the waves. Much cooler than a pool.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I think it was one point where I got a little too far and then it was hard to get back. And I started panicking and freaking out because I was little. And then I finally got back and I was like, I almost got stuck. It was like the water was pulling me back. And my dad was like, oh, yeah, don't do that. There's an undertow and you could get pulled out to sea. And I was like, oh, okay.
Now
thanks.
that you know already.
It's important safety tip. Thanks, Egon.
Have you heard my dad's barracuda story? Did he tell you that?
No.
He got sucked in by the undertow when he was swimming with a group of people, and all of a sudden he was away from the group and he saw a barracuda 20 feet down or whatever. He was looking at it. It was like, oh, shit. It just scared the crap out of him,
How do you even get back from getting out in the undertow?
I don't know. I would assume swimming. You know what I mean?
Something but it pulls you the other way, though.
Yeah, but you just go against it. You just try harder,
I guess.
I guess, too. I mean, I
guess
I don't
that
know.
Makes sense.
That's my dad. No idea.
I should. Maybe you have to go under the water.
Yeah. Andy Holmes is an expert on the undertow.
Isn't that crazy? We swim in the ocean, and there's shark attacks that happen, but we're just
It's not that crazy, in comparison to all the other stuff that we've done and do,
yeah, I guess.
Populating Australia way back in the day. They just traveled over there on a raft.
Yeah.
People do crazy stuff. We've been doing crazy stuff since our inception.
There's a line in The Matrix that's where the robots are talking about how awful humans are. And he's like, the only thing I can compare humanity to is cancer.
Yeah.
He's like, because you're like a virus. When you're not somewhere, you just have to go somewhere and spread and get bigger and bigger like a tumor.
Yeah.
And the more and more I hear about humanity, I'm like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Because you talk about us going to Australia and we're like, is that land with no people? No.
We got to be there.
We got to fix that.
We need people on that island.
Send some people over there. What would God say? Multiply, be fruitful.
Yeah. There's I forget the guy's name. I listened to him last night. He's got a special on Netflix called The Tennessee Kid. But he was talking about global warming and stuff. He was like, everybody's upset about global warming. He was like, y'all just calm down. Everything's going okay. I've been comparing this planet to other planets. And they're nowhere close to we are, they're just starting and we're almost done. So
yeah,
don't be mad about winning. Yeah, that's a good perspective.
Okay, so I've had multiple people on. I had Kyle McAllister who worked for NASA, and I tried to bring up the moon conspiracy to him, but I felt like he didn't really want to talk about it.
Yeah,
because I said, "What's your take on it?"
Oh, this is gonna be
and he said,
you're Popcorn Space, and you got space stuff. We got to talk about the moon.
Well, yeah. So we were talking. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting subject, but
Mm.
I said, what do you think about the moon conspiracy? And he said, everybody needs a hobby.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I just felt from that, the way he said it, he's like, everybody needs a hobby. Just the way he said it, I was like, he doesn't really want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So we moved on.
Yeah.
And then the other person I tried to bring it up to was Kyle Martin. I think that was last week.
So far, it's only been Kyle's then. This is your first Shelton.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, this is my first, not only Shelton, but first non-Kyle.
Dang.
But we were talking about, he brought up the Buzz Aldrin right there. And I was like, I said Buzz Aldrin wouldn't swear on the Bible that he went to the moon. And he was like, well, would you do that? And I was like, yeah, probably, just to get the guy to leave me alone.
Yeah, I would do that.
Like if I actually went to
the
the moon and some guy, like I'm old, some guy's like, swear on the Bible you went to the moon. I'd be like, I went to the moon, I swear. Like literally, like, who cares? And then move on. Like it wasn't like there was a crowd of people with Bibles trying to get him to do it. It was one guy.
Oh, really? I didn't know the context of it.
Have you not seen the video?
No.
He punched the guy in the face.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang.
Because he was like, get the F away from me. And he was like, would you just swear on the Bible? You just went to the moon. Just swear on the Bible. And he's holding a Bible.
Dang.
And he was just like, get away from me. And then he hit him in the face.
Well, I might punch anybody in the face that's like, comes up to me like, would you just like, don't do that with your body in front of me.
Yeah.
You know?
But I mentioned it to Kyle Martin last week. And he just said, he was saying, would you do it? And I tried to be like, yeah. I was like, you don't think, like, not one inkling of you thinks so we didn't go to the moon? He's like, what? No, like, forget it. And then we talked about something else.
Yeah.
And I just remember before, because you were an actor in my short film. We haven't even talked about that. Let's talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But I remember before one of our, it wasn't rehearsals, it was one of our shooting days. And we were talking about conspiracies, me and James, and you showed up and you're like, conspiracies? I'm really into the moon one.
I'm not that into it. I mean, I didn't even know that, Buzz Aldrin punched a guy over it. So obviously I'm not that deep.
Well, my biggest thing is it just doesn't make any sense that with every big technological advancement or historic accomplishment, there's been incredible, like a huge saturation of that event. So it's like we invented the plane, planes went everywhere, and now you can get on a plane. We could book a plane and be on one in an hour. Same thing with cars. They made cars, and then everybody had cars. And it just happens with everything.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't have a spaceship. Is this what you're getting at? Like
right.
Personal spaceship?
I don't have a spaceship. I don't even know anyone who's been to the moon.
Yeah.
I've never had any scenario where I've been close to someone who's been to the moon. There's been, 12 guys, I think?
Yeah.
Think about, we have like 7 billion people on the planet.
12 people have been to the moon? Oh, you're talking about worldwide?
Yeah. I think
not just USA.
I think it's 12 people.
12 people
right,
have
Jordan?
allegedly been to the moon.
Look that up. See how many people have been to the moon. Yeah. Well, that picture was supposedly taken on the moon. If you look under his legs, he's got some fake Hollywood moon rock.
Is that what you think? Your opinion is that we have not been to the moon. That's what you think.
For a few reasons. One, it's more fun to talk that way.
I agree with
that.
It
is 12 people.
12 people have been to the moon.
12 people have been on the moon.
In the whole world. Not just NASA.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't have it because there are only 3 on the NASA, right?
It just says 12 astronauts.
No, we had multiple things from NASA.
We had multiple trips?
Yeah.
See, I'm not deep at all into the moon conspiracy. I don't even know what month it is, bro.
Yeah, Kyle was, so when Kyle McAllister was here, he was talking about, he did like PR for NASA. And so he would kind of run like the broadcasting thing, like NASA TV. And he was there for like one of the launches. I can't remember what the guys were called.
That's pretty cool.
Anyways, no. So yeah, my basic opinion is that we probably didn't go.
They were all American.
Dang.
Only 12 Americans have been on the
What's
moon.
Russia been doing? I thought Russia had sent some people to the moon. Dang,
they were
Russia.
I thought Russia went there, and that was the whole thing, is that they saw our flag, and that's what everyone's argument is that why would Russia say that they saw our flag if we were like, was it in the Cold War or like right after the Cold War, something like that? Anyways,
sworn that Russia went to the moon.
But that's like the whole argument that I've always heard is like, why, if we were not we'd have to be in cahoots with Russia for them to be like, hey. But it's also, if Russia uses their space program as some kind of money laundering thing, it makes total sense.
That's true. There's no. So is this new Space Force thing just a massive money laundering event?
I don't know. I feel like Elon Musk. Because what's the deal with him? He's like making cars that are going to go to the moon or something.
Oh, yeah, and cars. Yeah,
he making everything.
He does whatever he wants.
He smokes weed on Joe Rogan. He can do whatever.
I don't think that he actually inhaled though. He pulled a Clinton.
Well, when I went and saw Joe Rogan, he talked about, or not Joe Rogan. When I went and saw Jordan Peterson, he was like, It was right after the Elon Musk thing.
Mhm.
And he said, I think that's hilarious because he's like, Elon Musk is insanely brilliant and like a freak of nature.
Dude.
And we're like, we like our freaks of nature very boring and traditional. And he's like, why do you care that he smoked weed?
Yeah. Dude, he is so freaking smart. It's crazy. I mean, just listening to him, you're like you're just even like the silence, hearing his mind tick, you're like, there's something up there that I'm completely unaware of. Like he's on a different level.
I think conspiracies can get dangerous, and I'm not a huge conspiracy theory guy. But when it comes,
So all of Russia's successful missions to the moon were unmanned. So they had spaceships land on the moon and collect data.
Yeah.
But there were no men on those spaceships.
No women either.
That's too bad.
No,
you know, in the first and probably more trip to the moon, there was a third guy. So there was Buzz and Neil.
Yep.
And then there was a third guy. I don't know the guy's name that had to stay in the spaceship and couldn't land on the moon. Could you imagine going all the way to the moon and just being like, okay, I'll wait here.
Yeah.
And just be reading the whole time.
Yeah, that sucks.
Brian Regan had a joke about it where he's like, imagine what that guy was doing. He's like, hey, I've been cleaning up in here. So I've organized all of the soaps and the ice cream.
Yeah. Whitest kids you know. Do you remember them from back in the day?
Whitest kids you know?
I'm pretty sure they're whitest kids you know. Yeah, the whitest people. No, whitest kids you know. There's a YouTube channel back in the day. They did all this funny stuff, but they had a skit about that. The guy's like, he comes back and he's like, yeah, he's using all these big words. He's like, I vacuum the centrifuge. And they're like, okay, you clean the cabin. He's like, yeah, I clean the cabin.
If you had to guess, or what is your current stance on if we went to the moon or not?
Oof, I don't know, man. Like officially,
because it doesn't really affect our lives right now, so it doesn't really.
But if I have
matter
to make
what
an
you think,
official stance on something,
I would like you to make an official stance.
I'm gonna say we probably didn't go.
Okay.
I don't know. It seems I would agree with most.
I feel like
points.
it's so easy to believe that we didn't go, and there's so much like Adam Ruins Everything did one on it, but I think Owen Benjamin went through Adam Ruins Everything because Adam Ruins Everything
an expose
basically said it makes no sense for us to fake the moon landing. We definitely went to the moon.
Yeah.
And so Owen Benjamin went through and like all his points or whatever because he was super into the moon conspiracy. Went through all his points and was like, yeah, that's false.
Huh.
But Adam Ruins Everything is kind of questionable because every now and again he's like pretty solid, but then every now and again he'll do some kind of agenda driven one.
Yeah, I don't know. I've only seen one episode of his, but I liked it. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I like, he gives all like his sources for everything. So he's one of the few people that everything he says is backed up by a certain source. But also the moon landing, if it didn't happen, it leaves room for so much more. So like there's one thing, and I'm not trying to state this as fact, but one thing that I've had discussed with me, one thing that I discussed with someone else.
I was about to say, like you were just
that was really weird.
Unwilling participant in this discussion.
I was tied to a chair, but it was, you know, about the what are they called? The stratospheres or whatever. The idea that there's like 5 stratospheres and the top one is heaven or something like that.
That's what it's called. It's called the heaven stratosphere. Or are you talking about metaphysical stratospheres right now? I don't know really much about.
I don't know exactly. I think it's based biblically, and there's like a whole book about it that they were showing me, and they showed me this picture. You could look it up. Look up like the 5 stratospheres and see if you can get an image on it. But it's like
who's this that told you this? James?
No, it wasn't James.
No.
It
sounds like James type conversation.
Yeah, it's very like kind of like supposed to be biblical, and so it's like there's the Earth, and then what we know to be space is like the first stratosphere.
Yeah,
or the first one's sky, and the one above that is space. And the one above that is something else, and then there's paradise, and then there's heaven, or something like that.
Oh,
and so the idea is that like. You think about the Tower of Babel, they were building a tower because they wanted to make it to heaven.
Yeah, I don't think they knew what they were doing back then, though. You know what I mean? They were just like, we're just going to build a real tall tower.
Right.
To this alleged
There's
heaven.
a lot of things we could say about that, but I guess the argument for that is like, why would God do anything about it if they wouldn't actually make it to heaven? So the idea is that, you know, our basic thought is heaven's not above us. You know, it's a metaphysical thing. And, but I guess the idea is that maybe it's the idea of the stratosphere, which I have not adopted, is that maybe it's not.
Oh, you're talking about, but the stratosphere, like the
idea
is
real
that
if you actually got up there,
is a real thing.
That would be heaven.
Yeah.
But if that was the case, if we're talking theoretically, if that was the case, my guess would be that you couldn't make it through space.
I would think that your physical body couldn't make it through space.
Yeah, there'd
Yeah.
be something about getting through our atmosphere. What? Did you not find one?
I couldn't find anything.
Oh, okay.
I just found like actual scientific like
God, forget it. Science.
Just science, man. Yeah, but that whole idea sounds like a bunch of BS to me.
The stratosphere idea?
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, I know. But I guess the idea that opens is that space is so much more open to interpretation if we didn't go to the moon.
Mhm.
So it means a whole lot of stuff. It means a whole lot more than most people want to think that it means, I guess.
Oh.
So the idea is that
That's
if
what-
we
okay.
went to the moon, then space is what we thought it was.
Yeah.
But if we didn't, that opens a whole world of possibilities.
Well, whether or not we've been to the moon, we've been to space. You know, I mean, we've got satellites in space and our
right, but not that far. Just outside of our atmosphere.
Yeah. But if space is one section, you know, prior to paradise.
Also, another thing that people have been talking about is they say that space is a vacuum, but that doesn't make any sense. David Berlinski talked about that.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as no space. A vacuum, space has to be filled with something.
Mhm.
So there has to be something in space. And some people think it's like some kind of form of liquid.
I don't know, man.
Because
It's
if
called
it
dark
were,
matter.
if we're a vacuum and you took a space, if we did go to the moon and if it were a vacuum and we got it into space, it would just be pulled apart immediately because space has to be occupied by something.
Aren't there certain areas of space that are a vacuum? Like a black hole's probably
A black
vacuum?
hole it would be like a vacuum.
Yeah. But some of these terms mean things that are different than I think that we mean. And I
Maybe
don't know
if we
enough
just watch
about them.
Interstellar, we'll understand.
I don't think so. I don't think that's 100% correct.
Have you seen that movie? Neil deGrasse Tyson says it's 100% correct.
Really?
Yeah.
I saw one movie. I don't remember. There was two.
Or mostly correct. I could be misquoted.
There were
but
two
he
that
says
came
most of
out
it's
during
correct.
that time. There was one with Sandra Bullock. Was that Interstellar?
Gravity.
Yeah, maybe
Gravity.
I saw
with George
Gravity.
Clooney and
Yeah,
Sandra
I
Bullock.
saw that one. I didn't see Interstellar.
I didn't see that one. Matthew McConaughey was Interstellar.
Mm.
And what's her name? Freaking Catwoman and Fontaine. What's her name?
Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway.
Mm.
So yeah, okay. So about the moon conspiracy, you don't believe we went if you had to make an official stance.
If I had to make an official stance, I'd say probably not.
I
think
wouldn't be
there's
blown
enough
away. If
evidence
I was
to be,
given
like,
proof-
pretty doubtful.
I wouldn't be blown away, but I think the only proof that you could be given is if you were taken to the moon yourself.
Yeah.
Because if they show you, here's a moon rock, be like, well, I've never been to the moon, so I don't.
Yeah.
How could I know that's a moon
But
rock?
somebody else could verify that scientifically that it's a moon rock. You know.
Yeah, but David Berlinski's argument is that science makes no sense mathematically.
I understand his argument in the sense that you're saying it, and I understand it. I don't understand the basis of it, you know, at all. I don't understand
David Berlinski's argument,
how
his
scientific
okay,
like could be disproved mathematically.
so like he talked about.
And if it can be disproved mathematically, what are we standing on? Nothing makes sense.
Well, right. So he said that a lot of stuff has been like the emperor's new clothes kind of thing,
Mhm.
where it's like these scientists, if you start telling the truth, they'll laugh you out, and you figured out that you could make a whole career on just nodding along and
Yeah.
lying. And so
Yeah,
a lot,
man, that gets
it's not that
goes
all science
deep
is
into
fake.
the conspiracy verse.
well, it does, but it's not that all science is fake. I don't think is his argument, but it's like, so a lot of like basically the whole gender studies thing where they're
Mhm.
trying to, it's become not about an identity thing, because again, if you want to identify as that and that makes you more comfortable, live your best life, that's fine.
Mhm.
But like, it just doesn't make any sense. There's no basis for it to say that this is now scientific fact, because that's changing what science means.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But his argument
But
is
that's
that
a recent development.
right. But his argument is that it's not. Is that that's been happening with a bunch of different things. So he said that like evolution as we understand it and as we are taught evolution
Mhm.
mathematically makes no sense. And so he's an agnostic, and he says, I don't necessarily believe in a God.
Mhm.
And he says, but it mathematically makes way more sense for this to be intelligent design.
Hmm.
And I can't rule that off the table unless I'm being incredibly arrogant.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah, it gets tough. I mean, because you get into like, you know, formulas and stuff. And
Yeah.
according to, I mean, science so far,
well, science, according to
everything
science, a
is-
bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly.
I don't know if that's true, man. Do you know that that's true?
It is true, because we talked about it in another podcast and we looked it up to make
Okay,
sure.
cool.
But yeah, a bumblebee is like scientifically the way that its wings are and its mass or whatever. It's not supposed to be able to fly, but it does.
Yeah. I don't know, man. You're talking to me about a lot of stuff I'm pretty ignorant of.
We just
no
had Alex
idea.
Jones on the podcast.
I don't. Yeah, he would tell you. He'd go
He-
into a full rant about.
I
how
bet
science
he's
is
I bet he's
unreal.
into the stratosphere.
Oh,
I bet
he's
you money.
way into the stratosphere.
He's
'Cause
like,
he
we
was
should
talking
build
about-
a Tower of Babel.
Yeah, he was talking about. I forget what he was talking about. People in rich communities, going into like consulting with demons in this other verse. Like, yeah, he'd be deep into
That's why we need to be rich
to talk with
the demons.
the demons. Yeah, no, for sure. That's climbing the ladder, man. Just trying
That's
to
the
get to
1%.
that demonic level.
It's
definitely.
not what is Bernie upset about?
The rich people.
No, but what does he say? The
Non-socialized healthcare.
He said it's 2 words. It's the inequality. Oh God, what is it?
The income gap.
Income inequality. That's it.
Oh.
That's it. So it's more like about like the demon consulting inequality.
Oh, yeah.
That's what the 1% is taking more than money.
Oh, I see. Yeah. If we were all like middle class, nobody could access demons.
Right.
Mm.
That's why communism is so attractive.
This makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So Stalin was like maybe a demon, but definitely talking to demons.
Yeah, because he was like because he wanted everyone to be the middle class, but him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He wanted all the demons for himself.
Right.
Yeah.
But absolute demons corrupts absolutely. So
yeah, that adds up pretty well. Yeah. Your Stephen guy would probably say that math.
Yeah.
Adds up. You got a bunch of demons in your life.
So the next thing I want to talk about, that maybe you might know a little bit more about, is this acting thing, because I've never known you to be an actor ever. And
I haven't.
You've never acted
no.
in anything ever besides my short film. Mm-mm. So you were the lead in my short film, or one of the 2 leads.
Yeah.
And
that was dope, man. I appreciate the opportunity. By the way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it was so weird because during that time, basically, I started working for Ripple of Light, and James was like, we worked together on Andrew's music video, and we worked really hard on it. And it was like the biggest project that we'd done so far.
It was a good music video.
We storyboarded it and like went all out on it, but it wasn't really our project. And so when I started working with him, he was like, hey, if you want to write a short film, I'd love to do it. Nice. And I was like, yeah.
I was wondering how that came about.
So like literally, I just remember the next night, I just racked my brain. I did that creative thing where it's like, you don't criticize yourself. So you write down, here's an idea for a short film. Here's an idea. Here's an idea. And then at the end of the day, I have a list of ideas. And how I started was, what would be an interesting way to open a short film? And I came up with a ton of ideas. Murder. And that's what I decided, murder. And it developed incredibly, because the first idea was that he murdered someone right before his wedding. So he murders someone, then he puts on a tux, and then he goes to his wedding. And the whole thing takes place at his wedding.
It'd be a baller move.
It would, but it would be incredibly expensive to make.
Yeah.
But that's how I got into that. And so I was trying to, I guess, rush through pre-production because I was so ready to start doing it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find anybody that I wanted to be the main character, because I knew I wanted him to be off and different. And I think that's what helped, is that you've never acted before, because it just felt off. And
and me being on the autism spectrum is what you're saying.
Yes,
that's offensive.
Asperger's doesn't exist anymore.
Not technically, not the name.
Yes,
definition.
yeah.
People still exist.
Dude, you're the only person I've said that to that knows. Because anytime people bring it up, I'll say that, and my friends have been like, "That doesn't make any sense." Yeah. I'm like, no. Just the classification. It still exists. It's not like people who had Asperger's don't exist anymore. No, like they got rid of them or anything. Yeah. It's just now they have certain levels of autism.
They're on the spectrum,
which I think makes no sense. But anyways.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean,
well, it's like, but it's almost a different thing.
How so?
That like there are people who have had Asperger's that are nowhere near, that are like almost fully functioning.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I don't know. I think the problem is that we don't really understand.
It just makes it more confusing. I mean, I don't think there's anything morally wrong with it. It's just, it makes it more confusing.
Yeah.
The whole thing about the DSM is for us to understand what they're dealing with.
Maybe.
And for them to, when we have so many specific terms, they'll be like, we need to clean up around here and get rid of these terms.
Yeah.
And that'd be like, I feel like it's kind of like, okay, we don't have dementia and Alzheimer's or insanity. We just have crazy people.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's so non-specific. We did this for a reason.
Yeah, I can see your argument. I don't know the other side of the argument though, to know if that's true or not. Like,
I'd be curious why they did it. I don't know.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I haven't looked into it at all though. I just know that they changed it.
Anyways, speaking of Asperger's, my short film, I was trying to find somebody, and I thought, like, worst comes to worst, I'll do it, but I didn't want to, because I really, this is my first like big, because I did my musical, but that wasn't a short film, and film is my first love, and so I've really wanted to make a film, and I wanted to be able to completely direct it and just be behind the camera, and watch it as it went down. So I felt like I'd be absent as a director on my first time to be the lead as well.
Yep.
So was like, worst comes to worst, I'll do it. And I thought of a bunch of people. I made a list of people I thought might be able to do it.
Mhm.
And I had them all audition, and they're great actors. Like, I
Mhm.
think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And some of them ended up being in the short film in another capacity.
Mhm.
But I had all these people read for Jack was his name. And it just didn't feel right. It's almost like they were too good of
Mhm.
actors.
Yeah.
And they were
I
just
appreciate
taking it too far. Well, they were a lot of them were also theater actors.
Yeah, no, I feel you. It's
So
like
they were
he was
way
supposed to be a flatter
overexpressive.
affect, yeah.
Yeah, incredibly flat, like
Yeah.
chilling. Which I thought was funny because we did that long shoot that was like went to like 4 a.m. and we like the lines we started doing just one takes
Mhm.
because everyone's so tired, including you,
Mhm.
and you had to do these really cold lines,
Mhm.
and you were like, I feel like love is just a lot like murder. I was like, okay, that's it.
Yeah, that works. That's what we wanted. Yeah, they were. That's when I got the
That was
most
the one
compliments that night.
advantage.
They're like, "You are killing it tonight." I was like, "This is like my normal
I'm just ready
state
to go
when
to
it's
sleep.
3 a.m." Yeah.
And no, so it was just really interesting because I didn't know what I was gonna do
Mhm.
because I was like, I guess I could compromise and have one of them act for him, but it would make my short film not the way I want it.
Mhm.
And then you kind of out of nowhere
Mhm.
emailed me like, you can live your own life, and we're in very different walks of life right now, so we
Mhm.
don't like talk very much.
Mhm.
And you were like, hey, if you still need an actor, I'd do it.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, that feels like it might work. And I had you read for it, and I thought you were good by yourself, and I was pretty sure I wanted you. And then I had you read with Bridget,
Mhm.
and you weren't as good at cold reading because you'd never done that before.
Yeah.
But then we had you do improv scenes
That was
because
rough.
were you in there?
I wasn't in there, but you showed me the video.
Oh,
of
the videos. Yeah,
improv.
we still got the videos.
The improv was good. Which
The
because I'm
improv was
okay
really
at
good.
that. Yeah.
Well, it was like because I wanted
But I can't just
you
read
to
something.
not have a script in your hand, and I wanted you to just be the character.
Yeah.
And it was so good because it was exactly what I wanted when it was one where it was like you're supposed to pretend there was a dead body in the kitchen. She was
Mhm.
looking for her keys, and she thought her keys were in the kitchen, and you had to keep her out of there without being like physically abusive.
Mhm.
And it was just so funny to watch you be manipulative, like in a really panicked manner,
Mhm.
but like keeping it together. And one thing you said, I can't remember what it was like. It was like, I think I left in the kitchen. No, I just looked in the kitchen. It was like, no, I think I did. No, I just went in there. I promise.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it just worked. And I really felt like you'd never met her. And also you were significantly older than her because you're 28.
Yeah, I'm 64. I'm just a vampire. No, I'm 28. Yeah.
28, and she just turned 21, but
Mhm.
when we were filming, she was 20.
Yep.
And so I thought it might not work, but you've got kind of a young look to you,
Mhm. Yeah, I get people tell me I look way younger than I am. all
which
the
is
time,
good. It's
especially whenever
better
I
than
cut
what
my
I've
hair.
got going because
Mhm.
so we talked about
You've
this.
been like 35
Jackson, you look
since you were
terrible.
14.
There's this threshold. There's this threshold that I skipped over. So it's like you're a little kid and you're
Uh-huh.
innocent, but some people are teenagers and they're still innocent when they're learning how to drive and
Uh-huh.
doing all these things. And so if you get pulled over when you're 16, the cop's like, okay, he's just learning.
Mhm.
But when I was 16 and I get pulled over, I look like I'm 40. So that I passed the threshold of innocence.
Yeah.
And so I
Well, it
remember
didn't help that you like kept empty beer bottles in your car and wore a
Yeah.
wife beater. You know.
Yeah. I mean, the mustache didn't really help.
Yeah.
But so I think the first time I got into a fender bender, I hardly even want to call it that. I bumped a car is
Mhm.
what I call it.
Yeah.
Because there was not a scratch on my car, not a scratch on their car. Everyone was fine, but they called the cops.
Mhm.
And so the cops ended up showing up and they were like, how fast were you going? I was like, the speed limit. I don't know. Like what happened was they were in one lane and I was coming down a hill.
Mhm.
And I was talking to Trey in the car, and I would like look back and forth. And then at the last second, they decided they wanted to be in this lane at the stoplight.
Mhm. And
So
you
they
decided
went
to
right
look
there.
over at Trey and talk.
Well, it was like I was close to them, and so at the last second they did that. I'm coming down this hill,
Uh-huh.
and I was already had my foot on the brake. I'm slowly coming to a stop, and they got there. So now the distance that I had was a lot shorter. So then I went from barely touching the brake to slamming on it,
Uh-huh.
and my car did that like bounce thing where it was going and then barely bumped their car.
Yeah.
And I got a $120 ticket for it. But I
Wow.
was sitting there talking to the cop
120's
about
not
it.
bad, though.
Well, I was talking to the cop about it, and I was explaining to him. And I just remember really awkwardly, I went, "I'm 16, by the way. I want you to know that I'm 16."
Mhm.
He was like, "Yeah, I looked at your driver's license." And
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, "Okay."
Yeah. Yeah, but
You're
you
not
have
fooling
had that.
anyone.
Because I had a
You're
beard, I
30,
didn't
you have
look
children.
16. It was very
Yeah,
interesting.
that mustache. I mean, it's just hilarious, man. You just
Yeah.
always had this like Like, did you just drink chocolate milk? No. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like ever since you're like 6 years old.
Yeah, I remember having a kind of there's pictures of me in like 6th grade, which is not good. It's just like because I shaved for the first time I think at the end of 6th grade.
Dang, that's crazy.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe in the middle of it. Just because I had this like weird little developing mustache.
Yeah.
It just didn't look good.
Yeah.
And the first time I shaved on my neck, I remember I was super scared because I had this idea that if I did it wrong, I'd cut my throat and I'd die.
Yeah.
So I was freaking.
You were
I
using a
realized.
straight
I realized
razor, that's how your dad taught you.
Yeah.
He's like, it's 1915, son, and I have to teach you how to shave.
I realized that's not only incredibly uncommon, it never happens. But yeah, my dad told me one time he tried to shave with a straight razor because he thought it'd be cool. And he said it wasn't working and he started to pull on it. And he said he remembered having this thought. It was like a premonition in his head when he started to pull that he would slit his cheek and just have this horrible battle scar forever.
Yeah.
And he was like, not going to do that.
What's this scar from? It's from being a hipster.
Yeah. It's like
I got a typewriter thrown at me.
I have a friend who's got this really gnarly scar like on his eyebrow. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
But he was playing Monkey in the Middle in his backyard with his brothers, and he ran into
mafia guys or something.
Yeah,
he ran
into a telephone pole.
Oh.
But Monkey in the Middle, they were playing with a football. So what he says is that he was playing football.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that's.
But if you look, he's never played football on an organized team.
Yeah. Just playing football.
There was a football involved,
Mm-hmm.
but never touched his hands because he got hit by a telephone pole.
Scars are always cool after the fact, but the stories aren't always cool.
But as far as the short film, I keep getting off track. What made you want to do that, and describe your experience to me?
I have always kind of wanted to do something acting wise. I've always thought it was interesting, at least. And you asked me in the beginning how I how would you say who is Shelton Holmes? And I wake up every day and I'm like, this is who I am. I don't know exactly, I don't have a set idea of who I am. So I think it'd be pretty easy to put myself into a character and really feel that character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I actually think I was doing that somewhat like the first part of my life. I just didn't realize I was doing it. I was trying to become this person that I really wasn't, I was kind of acting. So whenever I saw that on Facebook, I was like, that would that'd be interesting to do. I'd like to see if I'm any good at that.
It's almost like you're what was it? It wasn't Michelangelo, was it? Who's the guy who sculpted?
I mean, Michelangelo.
Did he sculpt?
I don't know if he did or not.
I don't
Probably.
know.
Michelangelo did sculpt.
Okay,
but
I
so
think
did-
it was him.
Oh,
and
yeah,
he was
he
like,
did.
he sees a big rock and he just starts feeling it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like you're trying to find Shelton in this big rock. And
Yeah.
you're like, let me hit over there and see if there's a part of me in that.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't think it's really people say you just got to know who you are. It's I don't know if people really understand what that means.
Well, people are way more complex. We know
We're
so
complex.
little about
Yeah,
ourselves.
That's what I'm saying. People are I just know who I am. It's you know who you think you are.
It's this weird
but
paradox.
if you gave yourself some leeway as
Yeah.
to who you really are,
Yeah.
then you discover some things about yourself that might be pretty enjoyable to you.
It's this weird paradox because we so badly want to compartmentalize everything,
Mhm.
and so we say right, left, liberal, conservative.
Mhm.
God, what was the other thing? This. I hate the Enneagram test for this reason
Mhm.
because people just try to put themselves in boxes, but we're so much more complex than that.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea is that you could be able to describe yourself. So it's I meet someone and I'm like, hey, who are you? So the first question, who's Shelton Holmes? And you're like, 6. Okay, cool. I know
Mhm.
exactly who you are.
Yeah.
But it just can't be that way because
Yeah.
we're so much more complex. If you want to get to know me, there's really only one way to do it.
Yep.
And it's a long and painful process. And
Mhm.
it takes a while.
Yep.
I can't just tell you I'm a liberal number 6 on the Enneagram test and
Yeah.
I'm straight.
Yeah.
That's who I am.
For sure. The Enneagram, though, is beautiful. It's a beautiful system.
Oh,
And
really?
the only reason that people say that is because, and that's the complete opposite of the Enneagram's intention. You're supposed to be able to get your type, and then over time.
I've always been my whole life I've been skeptical of those personality tests.
No, but this is different than a personality test. It really is.
Mhm.
I've got a book you can have if you want it, and you can
Okay.
read the whole history of the Enneagram, and then about each type. But
I had to start studying it in psychology. So
really?
I've started to learn more about it recently.
it's very interesting. But the whole goal, a lot of people are I'm an 8 or whatever, and so now I can kind of move towards that, or I'm proud
become
of
part of,
these
meme culture
qualities or whatever.
almost.
Yeah. But it's not about that. It's about moving away from your personality. Your personality, the way it's defined, is like your essence, your true essence, what you should be living as, or if you were living true to yourself, who you would be, is this, it's kind of one essential or two essential things. It's like love or kindness or something like that.
Yeah.
And your personality is a clay shell that is around your essence. And so each aspect of your personality that you shed, more of your essence shines through. So if you identify as your personality, then you're just reinforcing that clay. You're not letting what's true in you really shine through. So people use it like that, but that's
so
the opposite of what it's meant for.
Well, I'd like to read that book. I think that the way you said that, it reminded me of a Jordan Peterson thing when he said, he talks about burning off the dead wood parts of yourself.
Yeah, it's like that.
It's like sometimes there's until you only have what's solid. He said sometimes 95% of you is dead wood, and that's scary to get rid of 95% of you. But it's worth it and important if that 5% that you have left over
is true.
Is strong, like real.
Yeah. It's a really awesome system. And it's disappointing for people to use it like that, just identifying or whatever. But that's anything. Once it becomes popular, people just like, oh, this is this on a basic level. But then you get into it a little deeper and you're like, this could really be used for some transformational and powerful things. You just have to go deeper than that. And it's a little painful, but it's
what's the book called?
Necessary. The Wisdom of the Enneagram.
Okay.
It's written by the two guys that popularized the Enneagram in like the early 90s. But the Enneagram by itself, that symbol and everything else, is kind of an ancient symbol. It's been around for a long time. It's only recently been popularized and put into kind of a algorithm for different types and everything like that. But
the question, so I had to take one for class, and it was weird because I was talking to someone right before I took it, and they were like, I know what you are. And I was like, okay, what am I? And they said I was a 4.
They should never do that. That's the other thing, is you should never identify somebody else. There's so many intricacies of the person that you don't know based on what they're just saying to you,
But I talked to someone yesterday who said, I don't believe, because I told them about it, because they really are into it. And I said, hey, I took an Enneagram test. And they were like, I'm not really into the test, which threw me off because I thought they loved it. And they were like, I'm more into reading them and finding out who you are or whatever, which I guess would be misusing it.
Well, it's only misusing it if you're not, like, that'd be a beneficial perspective if you're using that to say that, I'm trying to become closer or understand humanity better, as opposed to just like putting somebody in a box.
Well, so the first person thought I was a 4. I took the test twice, and the first time I ended up being a 2, and the second time I was a 4.
What were your other results on the lower down, like first, second, third on those? Do you remember?
I'm written down. I don't remember exactly.
The real way to tell is if you read like this book. This book, I mean, it's written by the guys. So it has a little, on the introductory of each chapter, there's a smaller test you could take. And whichever one you feel most strongly with or you identify with as you read through the chapter, because it's in depth. I mean, each chapter on each type is like 30 pages long. It's a bunch of information about your childhood pattern, how you might have adjusted to develop this personality, everything else. So whichever one you identify with most strongly on a subjective level as you're reading through it is the one that you probably are. But that can take time to develop. Those tests, they're beneficial, but only if you do the deeper work. If you just label yourself like, oh, I'm this, and this is just how it is, then it's not really beneficial. You haven't done yourself any favors.
Well, the person I talked to yesterday, I asked her before I told her what I got, I asked her what she thought I would have or what I was. And she said either a 6 or a 7. And then she said with a something wing, I can't remember what. But I was like, oh, that threw me off because I assumed what I was a 4. And that's why when I took it the second time, that's what I got. And the first person I talked to said that. I assumed she'd say that because she knows so much about it. And so that kind of,
it's hard.
Is part of me being skeptical.
Yeah.
Which I get what you're saying because she only knows me in this certain aspect of life. So she only sees these few aspects that line up with that.
Yeah.
But it's almost, it reminds me of what are they called? Horoscopes? Like things that like really vaguely apply to kind of anyone. Or like when a medium is talking like, I really feel someone's presence here. Or is it someone with a J is very close to you in their name? No. J. No, sorry, it's a T.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm feeling that. Yeah, no, I feel it.
Yeah.
And it makes people feel special because we want to feel special.
Yeah.
And so we look at like like a fortune cookie. Every time we read a fortune cookie, we're like, dude, that literally applies to me, because we're so good at like figuring out, like taking like the patterns, like connecting two things that don't really connect, and finding out how to make a path to make them connect.
Well, yeah, and finding yourself in other things, you know.
Yeah, and so that's what I felt like, is that a lot of these I haven't read through all of them, but I read a lot of them, and I felt like so many of them applied to me in different ways.
Yeah, they
and
all
and at different aspects.
Well, all
of
of
my
them are
life.
elements of human nature.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, all of them are going to apply to you in different ways. But when you find your type, you'll kind of feel it, you know. And as I'll give you the book, and as you read through the book, you may read certain things that just like a memory happens or whatever. When I read my type, I took the test and I was like, yeah, I could see that being my type, but maybe not. And then I read the book and I read through all the chapters, and then I got to my chapter. And as I read through the chapter, I felt like seen in a way that I've never been seen before. I felt deeply like the deepest parts of me that I thought that nobody knew about were like written in a chapter in a book. I was like, it's crazy.
Well, it's been interesting. I'm in love with psychology. That's what I'm majoring in school right now. And I initially went into it because I was told from, like, I took this year going to junior college, getting my basics done, trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. Because initially I wanted to get a film degree. And I realized, listening to every popular filmmaker, they say, don't get a film degree. The one person who said you could get a film degree was Vince Gilligan. And he said, your parents will pay for film school, get a film degree. If not, don't.
Yeah.
He said, it's not worth the money. The only thing you really do that you couldn't learn doing film is you make connections. But there are so many cheaper ways to make connections.
Yeah, man. Oh, and in this like culture now where YouTube and everything else, it's like you can get so much done without a degree. I mean, if you put yourself out there and show that you're making good work, then that's a degree.
And the reason that I decided that college was important was J.J. Abrams had my thoughts, which was, everyone's saying don't get a film degree. Why would I go to college? And he said in an interview, my dad finally convinced me that I shouldn't go to college to get a film degree, but I should go to college to know what to make film about. So it's like I could go to college and learn how to make a table. Like I could learn perfectly how to make all the edges of a table.
Yeah.
And then it would be beautiful. But if I have nothing to put on the table, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So I could learn how to make the perfect
psychology is a good
film.
avenue then for that.
I feel like a lot of people who come out of film school, you can look up, there's millions of short films on YouTube from people coming out of film school, and they all feel kind of the same.
Yep.
They've all got the same, like, they're very professionally done, and they look like the dialogue sounds good, but they're like kind of hollow almost. And so that's why I decided I wanted to know people better and make more character-based stories. Because what I've learned is that you can have a shitty story and a shitty plot with great characters, and the movie works.
Yeah.
But if you have bad characters and a great story, the movie doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, people are looking for a relationship, especially now. And so,
it's all about
character development. Is the best. Yeah.
There's a movie called Diner, which if you haven't heard of, you should see it. It's got Kevin Bacon in it when he was young, and I can't remember who else was in it. But it's literally just these guys who used to hang out in the 50s at a diner, and they just kind of talk the whole time. But it's just like great characters. They're so interesting and so much fun to like watch.
Yeah.
There's not really a plot to it. Like there kind of is, but not. It's
well, that's why like Seinfeld worked. People love the characters. It was a show about nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I initially went into psychology, but I've started to fall in love with it, and I feel like it's almost like decoding the matrix being in psychology, because it's like there's just code all around us, but we don't recognize it.
Yep.
And so it's like in the final scene when Neo like started seeing everything as the code. That's like what it slowly is feeling like, because we just talk about basic everyday things that I've looked at, but we're dissecting it. And so I think the first thing was we talked about how we take in information through our sensory receptors, and then it becomes part of us in our brain. And it's just it reminds me of like it started making me think about like God, and like how we're all like, it's all about connection. And it's like God is like kind of like the connection in between us. And so what I say a lot, the best way to describe it is like, that door is way over there. It's 10, 15 feet from me. But when I look at it, I'm taking it in through my sensory receptors. It's becoming a part of me. So now that door is inside of me. It's actually a part of my being itself.
Yeah.
Which is so weird if you think about it that way. The same thing with like your ears when you hear things or when you feel things, like any of your senses. So it's like I have this poem, which in my metaphorical understanding is the proof for God. And I said, but the skeptics say, I just don't think God's here. I mean, I can't see him, I can't feel him, I can't hear him.
Mhm.
So yes, you can. Look, that's him. You being able to look and take the world into your person,
Mhm.
that's him. Like when you can take in this information and it becomes a part of you. Like
Mhm.
that's God, I guess.
Mhm.
Which feels confusing, but to me, that's what makes sense. If that,
Mhm.
I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Not really, but everybody's like definition of God and stuff like that differs, you know.
Well, I mean, and it's by no means fact. I mean, how I describe myself, which I say I feel like not enough people do, is that I'm in a very transitional phase and I'm learning a lot. I'm in
Yeah.
the middle of my first psychology class.
Yeah.
But
Well, you'll be in a transitional phase until you die,
right.
you know.
But I'm in an incredibly transitional phase because I'm you know a sophomore in college right now.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, and then you'll graduate from college and be like, I'm in an incredibly transitional phase because I'm a new adult.
you know what? I'm wrong, Shelton. No, but it just feels like. But even if you don't understand the
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're talking about with your
it's
concept
still
of
like
God.
it's still like a beautiful thing about connection. Like we all want to feel connection to people. That's
Yeah.
why things are funny.
Yeah.
Because someone says something, some famous guy says something on a stage, and we're like, oh my gosh, I get that. It's like
Mhm.
we're friends. Like I get that. Like I understand and we're connected.
Mhm.
And that's it's like my next tattoo I want to get is called the everything metaphor. Yeah, and it's my response to the Christ mystery. Do you know about the Christ mystery?
Not specifically.
It's like everything in nature, or many things in nature,
Mhm.
run on the system of birth, life, death, and resurrection.
Mhm.
So like the story of Christ,
Yeah.
trees, the seasons,
Yep.
like our conversation.
Yep.
It just always happens.
Yeah.
And my response to that was I think that everything kind of runs on the same circuit, the same formula
Mhm.
almost. And so it's like the proof for everything is in everything. So if you want to know something, look at the world around you and you'll
Mhm.
see it repeat itself in nature.
Yep.
And kind of in everything.
Mhm.
And so I guess so it's like this connection that's between us. So I guess like if God is love, love is this connection between us.
Mhm.
And so you think about the connection between us, you think things are funny because you're connected. You want to be close to people, you want to feel connected. And then that's exactly what your senses do. So if you look in nature, that's what our senses do.
Mhm.
We're connected to other things. So even when you're sitting in a stage, I went to go see Jordan Peterson. I didn't talk to him. I didn't shake his hand, but I literally took him in, and it was like he was a part of me. It was like we were connected because I was in the same room with him, looking at him. If that
Mhm.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
I was taking in his information into my ears.
Mhm.
So I guess that's the idea. And it just seems like such a simple concept, but as you start to deconstruct it in psychology, I
Yeah.
think it's a really beautiful way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like when you look at a pretty painting, imagine that being life. It's like, wow, that's beautiful. But then if you look back and like watch a documentary about how that painting was made and all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into it and all the like meaning and metaphor behind it, you're like, oh my God, that's incredible. Like
Mhm.
now I realize the true beauty of it.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. What's the tattoo going to be?
It's a anatomically correct heart.
Mhm.
It's going to be right here with roots coming out of it that
Mhm.
form a tree. And then the tree goes around my shoulder and then leaves fall down my arm.
Dang, that's a big
And
tattoo.
the leaves change
It's a
color.
half sleeve,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Dope, man.
It's going to be so it's basically going to be a sleeve that's just going to not be on the lobster.
That's cool. You're going to get it done by the same person?
I think so, because
Yeah.
I want it to look similar,
Mhm.
because it would look weird if it didn't.
Mhm.
Because I saw someone recently who had like a bunch of random tattoos,
Mhm.
and they were nowhere near the same style.
Yeah.
And it just felt like a random collage, like a refrigerator with pictures on it.
Yeah, that's
you know?
unfortunate. Unless that's what you're going for.
Yeah, I guess so.
In which case, it's very fortunate you accomplished that.
When did you get your first tattoo?
Like when I was 25.
Yeah.
25 or 26 was right after all that happened.
Were you ever against tattoos?
No. I don't think so.
Did you ever think that you would, like growing up, did you ever think that you would or wouldn't get one? Because I never thought I would.
I honestly probably imagined that I would get one. Like in my head when I was
Mhm.
living that lifestyle in my head where I was like, this person would be really cool if he existed. He'd probably get one.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I was ever like brave enough to do that. Like, oh, you're doing something permanent to your body, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, I went through a big battle, which was like, I mean, so you could look at it biblically and say that like your body's a temple, or you could look at it just like naturally, which is like, it's, you're cutting into your body essentially and creating this thing that isn't natural. And so I was like kind of worried about it at first and wondered if there was any maybe moral issues with it. Because, you know, we look at like cutting yourself is incorrect. Even if some people say that it can make them feel better, we see it's incorrect because you're harming yourself and that's not good. And so I guess the verdict that I came on is it's kind of like when someone covers a song because they think it's so beautiful. So it's like adding to, like, if this was an art piece that was given to us, we're just like putting our own spin on it. Yeah. Almost. So we're taking our artistic interests and making it a part of the art that already existed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're already an individual and everything else, but it, you know, individualizes you a little bit. And there's something to be said about a rite of passage through pain. You know, like there's a little bit of painful, but it's something that I desire, and it's something that, you know, is going to make me more of the person that I would like to be. Yeah. And so it's a necessary change. Like pain is a necessary change to, you know, create the future of you. So
life is pain. That's what Hot Rod said in the movie Hot Rod.
Well, Hot Rod. Yeah. So wise.
Yeah. Very wise.
Yeah. He likes to party, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. He does like to party.
Him and his whole crew.
I thought he did. Yeah.
So to close out, because you got to get going.
Oh yeah.
But to close out,
flew by, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. It always does. People. Kyle McAllister had never been on a podcast before, and so it like threw him off because I think we started at like 6 and we ended up going to like 8:30, and he was like, "What time is it?" And Jordan was like 8:30, and he said, "No, it's not." Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's crazy. It just flies by.
That's cool.
So to close out, I just want to ask you what your experience was, like, good or bad,
on this podcast
about acting.
Oh, like it's been
we didn't close that out. It's good to know that it wasn't good on the
about
podcast,
acting.
though.
It was the podcast has been excellent. First of all, the acting was positive. All of it was positive. You know. Parts of it made me uncomfortable, like me driving. That was the one part. That was like I was driving in the car, and then you're telling me like it's just a scene for like my face, and you're like smile, and then bob your head.
When it was just you in the car.
Now laugh. Now look sad. I was like, this feels like I'm like a monkey on a tricycle, and I've got my master like whipping me around or something. I was like, this feels ridiculous.
Well, it's because it's like for like a. First of all, that was a last minute shot that wasn't initially going to be in it. And it was also, we didn't have a ton of time. And so that was kind of, I wanted to throw it into this montage that's in the beginning of everything that happens. Yeah. And so I didn't know exactly how it was going to feel with whatever song we put on top of it. So I needed a bunch of different small excerpts of emotion from you. So it was like happy, all of it made happy, sense. Sad, angry, frustrated.
Yeah. But as I was doing it, I was like, this feels so stupid.
Yeah.
But all of it was really good. It was all kind of a growing experience. I realized that I like it. I mean, a lot more than I thought I did. I'd like to act in more things or whatever. And I'm pretty comfortable in front of the camera, which is something that a lot of people aren't. So
well, I think it teaches you a lot about psychology to act, which is what I've learned, because I've played characters that are crazy different from me. And like the more different, the more I enjoyed that character. So my favorite character I ever played was this really old, closeted hermit gay man. And I'm in love with that guy. I think he's fantastic. Yeah. Like, I literally think of him as another person. Yeah. He's so different from me.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of is. I mean, it's a character, you know?
Yeah, I know. I create like literally, I sound insane when I talk about him, but it feels like he's a person that I miss because I can't like, I developed his voice and his walk and who he was, and he looked different than me. He had a much longer beard and he had gray hair. And I like got out of shape for that role because he was a hermit and he like eats all the time. That's kind of what I did with the character. I like planted food all over the stage. So like during the, because I was kind of like the narrator that had my own story. So when other things were going on and I was just on stage, I would just like go and find food and like cupboards and eat it. Yeah. There was one song that people were doing and I just pulled out cereal and I poured milk and I just started eating cereal. One of my notes from
what was this for?
Is a musical.
Oh, okay.
It's called I don't know if you.
Where at here?
It was at Avalon High.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if you like musicals at all.
I don't.
I know people sometimes don't.
Yeah.
Well, like only you've because never liked one musical.
I know I like some musicals, like Newsies. I liked. Lauren loves.
Chicago.
Chicago. Yeah, she loves Chicago, and Chicago is pretty good. I like Chicago.
So the thing is, a lot of people don't like musicals, and I feel like it's the same thing with like books and movies and songs. It's like I just don't think you found the right ones
For
because it's
sure.
such a big genre.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But The Drowsy Chaperone is like the funniest and maybe my favorite musical. It's so fantastic because it's like making fun of kind of really old 1920s musicals, and it's really about the narrator, but it's like it hides that fact at first, and so it slowly unfolds as I do commentary on it, like about my life and what's happened to me. And it's like a really, really beautiful story, but it's also hilarious because it's making fun of like how racist things used to be. So there's this one character that does all these different impressions, and at one point we're listening to the musical on a record, and I switch it. It's got another record, and I switch it after intermission, and I'm like, I'm gonna go pee real quick, and so I leave, and it starts this other one called like A Message from a Nightingale, which is this super racist against Asians thing. They like come out like doing this, and it's so awful. And I come out and I'm like, oh, sorry, that's the wrong musical. That was another one done by the same people. But it's had the same actor, and I said he was a man of many different accents, all of them insulting. No, but that was a really good one. And
so it was a play that you, I mean, it was something that already existed, and then you made it into a play at Abilene High.
Yeah. No, well, yeah, we performed it at Abilene High.
Yeah.
I didn't write it or anything. It was written like in like 2000 or something.
Okay.
And it was interesting because I made that character very different than the original. And so I did something that was, and that's weird. That's weird. It's kind of different because, you know, what you worked on with acting was something that was original. So there'd never been a Jack before you. But with me, I had to listen to the songs from the original soundtrack to know what they sounded like. But I listened to them once. I only had one song anyways, but I listened to them once, or the ones with me anyways. And then the rest I would just go to the choir rehearsals and listen to the people that we had sing them to know them. Because I didn't want to copy the guy who originally played that character, and I wanted him to develop naturally, as if I was the first one. And so it's kind of weird whenever I hear the songs now because he's so different than the character that I made. Yeah. Anyways, no, but I think it's very like telling psychologically to be an actor. So if you're into psychology, I think that you should give acting a go. Yeah, I mean, I'll still do it if any other opportunities you as in you, but also you as in the royal. Yeah. The camera. Yeah, the internet. You. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So I'm keeping you here forever, but no, it's all good, man. It was good having you on. Yeah, good to see you, bro. I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it always, and appreciate you too, man. Thanks for coming out. Yeah. All righty. Well, we'll catch you next time. All right, sounds good. Thanks, bro.